Hey guys, how you doing? I guess we caught you in the middle of fixing your hair, huh?
It's a girl thing.
It's a girl
Looks
thing.
cute.
Speaking of cute, look at you. So we want to welcome.
Why do we do that?
We want to welcome everybody today. We're on episode 12 of the Reels and Heels show, and today we're gonna be a little bit of dancing, a little bit of singing. It's all about musicals.
Talk to me.
Well, we got video going as well as audio, so for the audio, they won't know that what we're looking at. But yeah, musicals have been around since I was doing some research since the 20s in Hollywood, and then they started getting bigger as the years progressed. I would say probably when we hit the 40s and 50s is.
I love how we go straight from silent movies to musicals. I think that's the way.
Just seemed very logical at the time.
Well,
but that's the way it should be, to be completely honest. Like, we go from absolutely no sound to all of the sound. Why not?
Weren't the silent films, even though they were silent, they had like music?
There's music and like music dubbed over.
Right.
I mean, most of Charlie Chaplin's work is all, like the music is dubbed over top of it.
Yeah.
Which.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say about that.
That's all you got to say about that. Well, I was doing a lot of research. Like
I didn't research that or anything.
I went to AFI, which is American Film Institute, and I got a list here based on the Hollywood Bowl, which is a very famous place there in Hollywood where they do a lot of live concerts, and they do a lot of like John Williams will play there, I think, once every couple years, where he'll do the music over the film that you're watching live. So we have here the Hollywood Bowl. I have what they consider their 25 favorite or greatest movie musicals. So we'll be talking about that, which this list is pretty cool because it gives the year and the studio, as well as, of course, the film title. So, Willow, it's been a while since you've joined us on it.
Life gets in the way and I have to work.
So, before we get all into this, how are things up there in Canada for you?
It's good. We had a Black Lives Matter protest in my city yesterday, and nobody rioted, which was good. I wanted to go. I thought I was able to go, and then I looked at the wrong schedule. But yeah, that's me. But one of my friends went, and he told me all about it. There was like thousands of people apparently that showed up. So it was packed out our legislature building.
Yeah, it's great to see, not just in our country, but across the world, like a lot of the protests and the peaceful ones,
mostly, like, if there's not injuries or casualties that are involved, I mean, I think that's where we have to say, it's like, I understand why things get out of hand, and I understand why those things happen. It's not that I don't. It's that I'd rather think about the things that are ultra positive, because that's what's going to move us forward, and that's what's going to people realize that this is important. But I understand why they don't, and I wholeheartedly agree that sometimes the only way to get people to listen is to scream.
Yeah. I especially like the fact that it's bringing a lot of people together for the same cause, and like I have so many friends who fall under the people of color category. Well, but I have I have the utmost respect for everybody in my friends list, and to see that to see anybody treated differently really ticks me off. And so I just want to make sure that they know that I'm standing with them, and the fact that everybody in my city is on the same wavelength is amazing. And to see so many people stand up and say this is wrong, it just makes me very proud of my city.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the basis of our show here, Reels and Heels, is whether you're a film fan, a wrestling fan, doesn't matter if you're black, white, red, or green, gay, straight, trans, you're all welcome here. I mean, we all have a thing that we love. And I heard somebody say that when you go to a sports game, you have all races, and nobody cares about that. They're all there cheering for their team.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really good way of looking at it.
Well, and I think part of it is that being an anti-racist or being with the movement or whatever, however you're defining yourself at this point, if you're an ally, then you understand that it's not just a political movement. It's not just politics. It's the way we treat people.
Yeah.
It's the way a person feels at home in their own skin and not feel like they have to worry about what comes next. And it's funny because there's a BuzzFeed quiz that talks about privilege, and I already understand my privilege as a white woman, but privilege goes deeper than that. And so when we talk about Pride Month and we talk about BLM and we talk about all these things, those two things are very much together. They're very much related. And if we can not talk about race when we come together to talk about the things we love, that opens conversations. I think that builds trust. That builds us to be more excited about what's going on in a certain area. And then that can open conversations that, you have to have once you have trust built. I don't think that we can just have conversations that are open and hurtful and hard when we don't have someplace to be trusted and excited about something. I think that the way most, film files and audio files, I think we all gather together based on the things that we love. And we might be interested to be like, oh, you love that too? Well, that's really cool because, I know this. And then you learn all kinds of new things. And then you build that momentum of, I trust you. I care about you. Now let's have some conversations about why this is happening. I think that's important. Because none of those come without trust. I mean, nobody wants to be told that they're wrong or bad or whatever. I think that comes from trust. And when we all love something, music is ingrained in so much of our soul, no matter what culture we are, that the way we portray that on film is important to our lives. The stage and the screen are important. So if we can come together caring about that, I think it's the same thing with film, TV. I think it's the same thing with sports entertainment and wrestling. I can't say that race doesn't play a part in who you are interested in, but it doesn't play a part in who you see as a good person and who you enjoy to watch and who you think is amazing. I think that shouldn't. So over and above all, it's we don't want to be political, but we want to say, we're allies and we care. So let's try to talk about the things that we love so we can find a common ground and trust each other.
Yeah.
And I probably should shut up.
So, I was, looking at just musicals in general. And I mean, musicals are probably not my top genre, but I do appreciate them. And I do actually like quite a lot of them. And I think maybe everybody has a favorite.
It's funny when you look at them, though. Do you realize that some of the things that are ingrained in our lives and what we love, we didn't really consider musicals. We were like, oh, yeah, that's on the musicals list. Oh,
absolutely. Willy Wonka. I'm still like I'm still shocked at the fact that it's considered a musical, because I'm like, yeah, I remember singing some of the songs, and every now and then I'll like reference back to that movie. But to me, I don't feel like it's a musical. I don't know.
Well, I think, I mean,
I didn't consider Mary Poppins a musical. I mean, like, they sung in it, but they sing in every Disney movie. So I didn't realize that was even a thing. I was like, song is just part of movies when I was growing up.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I probably should have researched that a little bit more. Like, what really what makes it a musical? Does it have to have so many like actual musical numbers?
Must be. It must have to have so many musical numbers within that time frame or within a certain amount of time. I don't know. Because if you think about it, there's a lot of stage productions that you go and see and you wouldn't consider them musicals, even though people sing. So, I mean, like in Broadway shows, like I understand Broadway, everybody thinks musicals, but Broadway shows have a lot of story that's told in dialogue too. So,
yeah, and sometimes there's no singing in those. It is just dialogue.
You know, sometimes it's just dialogue, but most of the time it's musicals. But you know, like I don't know. I don't know what the rule is, the hard and fast rule. Maybe we should have looked that up. But to actually talk about some of them, like I don't know where should we start with favorites, or because I mean this is a vast. It is a vast.
I mean, if you go on CTM or TCM, they will play constantly, Debbie Reynolds movies, Fred Astaire. Just there was one time where all in 1 week they were playing pretty much all of Debbie Reynolds movies, and it just how much I really enjoy her movies. And
you know, I was just say you mentioned Fred Astaire. Not only did he play in a lot of musicals, dancing, it seemed like he was always dancing like on glass or water, just the way his feet moved.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people actually in the dance world actually look up to him like as like a mentor, even though they haven't even worked with him. They consider him like the top.
I think it's because in that time, I mean, when you think about think about like gender specific roles we played in the 50s. You know, we didn't mind if women danced. It was kind of unheard of to see a man make his living from dancing. And as that changed, I think we just became really used to seeing, Fred Astaire do it. I mean, and so many other people that were not necessarily within the time. Like people make their living by dancing. And,
well, I mean, Dick Van Dyke was another one that was so great on TV.
Yeah. And the movie with Shirley Temple, and I cannot remember his name, but I see the picture of it where he's dancing on the stairs.
Oh, yeah.
Up and down the stairs. Like I've seen it so many times, and I can't. You remember
through my mind,
right? Like I can see it, but I can't remember the name.
She's so adorable. Shirley Temple.
She's watching him dance up and down the stairs. Oh, Mr. Bojangles. How do I even know that? How do I not know that? Bill Robinson. The tap dance up and down the stairs. And that was a fairly iconic moment in Hollywood. Like we see people sing and dance, and it just becomes part of, what are you doing? There isn't anything in there for you.
Kids.
She's talking to her children, not me.
If I look like I'm looking over the computer, it's because there is a child doing God knows what. And God knows why. There's nothing in there for you.
Oh, kids.
And where are you going to go to spend it if there was money in there?
Well,
Hey,
look
Terry.
at this. Terry.
Hey, Terry.
All the way from Ireland.
Oh, children. So I think Brian blocks me in by design to be sitting on this side so that I can't get out to go, you know, whatever, because I probably would never come back because, you know, kids. But yeah. So I think I think they go hand in hand. I have a bump that's bothering me.
So I think we'll start with favorites. And this musical kind of falls into two categories for me. It is my favorite Christmas movie, and it is also my favorite musical of all time, and that's White Christmas.
Oh, absolutely.
Seen that movie more times with you than I did in my entire life before I met you.
I mean, the pairing of Danny Kaye and Bing Crosby was perfect. I know some people, you know, like Holiday Inn, but I totally prefer White Christmas.
I like Holiday Inn, actually.
So that's my favorite. I mean, I just the whole, you know, getting
like favorite of all time.
Yeah, that's my favorite musical of all time. It's also my favorite Christmas movie of all time. And the whole notion of these two army buddies getting their army pals together to celebrate their what was he like their commander was just genius. And the way that they did it, and they meet two ladies on the way, and you know it
just works out. It's a happy ending. Everybody is happy.
Yes, it is a happy ending.
Yeah,
we like happy endings. Happy endings are good.
Yeah, I just remember when they the girls had to sneak out, and so Bing and Danny dress up as the girls and sing the song "Sisters" in the club.
You know what? You know what I love about that movie too? Like when I think of the 50s, I know women were powerful then, but they were powerful in a different way. And for them to be so outspoken and so tough, like I don't mean like I mean tough differently than what people probably assume tough as, but like they were just what I had hoped the 50s would be like for women.
Well, this was just before. This was right at the end of World War II.
It wasn't the 50s yet.
Yeah, it was 40s.
Well, it doesn't really matter because
it's Rosemary. It's Rosemary Clooney,
who was amazing. Is amazing. Still.
And yes, that Rosemary Clooney, which is
George Clooney's aunt.
Yes, George Clooney's aunt.
Which he keeps saying that he doesn't have any talent to sing. Which is
great. Doesn't mean you can't sing.
Well, that's super funny there.
They when he was in wow, brain fart.
Sorry, contagious.
No, he did a musical himself, but he did not sing. He mouthed all the words, and because he said in an interview that even though he comes from a musical family, he doesn't have the talent to sing, which, you know, I don't know if he's lying or not. I don't know. He kind of seems like he would have a good voice for singing.
But think about comfort zone too. Like if you were never trained in it,
yeah,
you probably don't feel that you have a specific skill set for it.
Right.
And unlike some people, maybe he doesn't feel like he's a triple threat. Maybe he just realizes that acting is his niche and that's where he should stay.
But
I'm not,
brother, where art thou?
This is not my opinion. I'm just saying that there are often too many times that people decide to go up the ladder or try something new and they're not good at it and they should have just stayed where they were.
Yep.
That's a good movie though that you mentioned there.
Yeah.
That is definitely one of my favorites. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Even though I'm I love hymns, and some of the hymns that are in that movie and some of the older songs I just fell in love with all over again because it was so beautiful.
Yeah, I just remember that movie. That movie came out. The whole song like took off, and it was like "Man of Constant Sorrow" was like everywhere.
Yep.
And the funny thing is that it's based on the Odyssey, which is actually kind of poetic in nature. Like it's taking something, like we do a lot of that in film. I think we take those stories that are, told and retold and told and retold, and we put a little spin on them and we package them as something new. And I think that keeps on telling the story over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
But again, back to musicals.
Yes.
How we digress. We digress often.
So, like I said, White Christmas for me. What about you?
I have to pick one. Okay, so pre 1950, I have two. Well, no, okay, pre 1970, I have two. And that's Wizard of Oz and West Side Story.
Yeah.
And probably because I grew up watching Wizard of Oz, and I probably watched at least once a month. Like anytime it was on TV, I had the VHS. I was kind of obsessed. And then West Side Story, as I got a little bit older, just because it was that time period in the world where it was so like everybody was looking for a way to tell a story about civil rights, and it is a story about civil rights. I mean, it is a story about the guy from the wrong side of the tracks, and the only reason people don't like him is because because he doesn't fall into a certain category. And I think that was amazing. But some of the dance numbers, and it wasn't even, I don't even think it was the music that stuck out. It was the dance numbers, because they were so just words again. They were powerful, and they were different, and they were exciting. And again, you saw a lot of men dancing, which you saw, we saw in Grease too, but I'm just saying like those like powerful moments.
I'm curious to see Natalie what Spielberg is going to do with his version of West Side Story. I know he's keeping it within the time. He's not making it modern. So it should be interesting.
Good. I want to see it kept in the time.
It's very interesting, Spielberg being attached to a musical, though. But maybe it's because I'm used to him doing like Indiana Jones and E.T. and
yeah. Well, Spielberg's dabbled in a little bit of everything, with even though he wasn't the director, but he was involved in Poltergeist, so a little bit of horror. He's done the action, sci-fi.
But if you think about it, it's a Romeo and Juliet story. So if you're thinking about that, like, you're not necessarily thinking like just the musical side of it. You're thinking it's a Romeo and Juliet story. So it does have those essences of that love story and that, strife that I think he likes to tell. But that was another one of my favorites.
What about you, Willow?
Well, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou definitely is one of the top ones for me. I grew up with watching musicals, and my grandfather, I think that was his favorite genre. something he grew up on. So, you know, he would always be watching classic movies. Singing in the Rain sticks in my head a lot. I've watched that like 3 or 4 times just recently.
I mean, talk about iconic moments in Hollywood. The whole like dancing just with the umbrella.
And you know, I don't know. Just, there's something about old Hollywood that has such a magic to it, and they try to bring that to the new like the modern age of film, and it just isn't the same. They were really close with Hail Caesar. Like they were trying to embody the classic old Hollywood feel with Hail Caesar, and I absolutely loved that film because of it. But
you
I don't know. There's just something missing in modern times.
I think there's a luster and a beauty of the way things were shot in that time, like just the filter, the Technicolor. I mean, something about the color, something about the way people were portrayed, something about that time that can't really be duplicated. It can't be.
They really took the set pieces and made the set piece like part of like the set piece was the actor, you know.
Yeah, it's just the way things were filmed and shot and colorized, and I mean, I think, and maybe that's because Wizard of Oz is my favorite, but there's something about that haze that happens when you take something that was black and white and you colorize it. That I think that's kind of like the feel is there's like that softened. It feels softened a little bit. I don't, and I mean like the picture is softened. I don't mean like the story is softened. I mean like picture is softened, and it's just pretty. Like it's just pretty. I don't know, like, but also, men and women, life was hard, but I'm not going to say that life wasn't hard, but life was different, and I think we are somewhat reminiscent of that time too. Like, you know, that love story or that family dynamic or something like that. I think that some of us miss that, and we kind of maybe glorize it because we never really had it.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know.
I think I kind of understand what Willow's saying though about the newer movies. Is I think a lot of the newer films in general like to actually shoot on actual locations than on a soundstage. I mean, certain movies, you know, have to shoot on a soundstage. You know, big budget like Marvel movies and stuff, but they will film. But
even that soundstage is different now because soundstage isn't really there. It's not like somebody built a set. And
I think it's the CGI that kind of takes me away from a lot of it, is because they're not focusing on like actual making a film so much as, you know, creating something that isn't there.
Creating a world, And I think that technology is making it easier for that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think we do kind of still love that small location set kind of, you know, doing it on a soundstage, or, you know, it's just, I don't know, maybe that's what makes it so special, is that it's not around as much anymore.
Yeah. What about like some of the newer musicals? I know I got to give props to Bradley Cooper for A Star Is Born. I know that movie's been done like 4 times, but I really loved his version.
Yeah. I've never actually seen A Star Is Born prior to Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga, but you know, it kind of messed me up a little bit.
I saw the Barbra Streisand version of it, and And I think in order for certain stories have to be modernized for them to still be relevant, but like, and some things do have to change.
Yeah, because each version of the film is different.
Each version is different, but I think it's slightly different in movies like The Rose and stuff like that too. That those kind of like the story is still there. It's just that there's certain things that are changed to make it relevant for the time and have it still sell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people will still care about it.
So let me read off this AFI's greatest movie musicals. Can you say that last name?
Mosseri?
John
Mosseri?
Mosseri. From
and the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra.
All right, so we'll start with number 25. And this is one of my favorite films. This film is actually in my top 10 list. Number 25, Moulin Rouge, which came out in 2001 from 20th Century Fox. I didn't think Ewan McGregor could sing like that.
I didn't. Okay, well, I didn't know anything about Ewan McGregor before that movie.
I've seen bits and pieces of it. I haven't seen the whole thing.
But it's a kind of a tragedy. Like it really is. I mean, it's beautiful. Baz Luhrmann did amazing, but it's kind of a tragedy, and it's actually pretty sad. Like really.
Yeah.
So
I mean, him and Nicole Kidman though was like perfect chemistry.
I didn't know Nicole Kidman could sing until that movie came out, and then I was like, oh my god.
So we have that at 25 on their list. Number 24 is Showboat from 1936, which I know. I mean, Showboat is been was a Broadway staple. And then 23, they have Guys and Dolls, which
I think that's a lot of people's favorites. So it's like,
I think it's one that's done a lot. Like when you talk musicals, I think people have a recognition of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then on the list they put Beauty and the Beast at number 22.
That doesn't surprise me, actually.
Which that's a pretty good musical. I mean, a lot of the music in that movie is good.
It was really popular in like I remember going to school one year, and it was just like all over, like even like the drama classes were trying to recreate it, and just I remember high school musicals were trying to put it on as a show. And
I think Beauty and the Beast and Guys and Dolls have both had their run in high school musicals.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny because to go back to Moulin Rouge, Terry says Ewan McGregor sang in A Life Less Ordinary years before, and like I said, 2001 I think is probably the only the first time I'd really paid attention to Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he was in Star Wars, The Phantom Menace, and the prequels and stuff, but he wasn't really a household name like he is now.
No, but I think that's the beginning of his career too. But I mean, it's good to, I think, go back. Like I know of it, but I don't think I've actually seen A Life Less Ordinary. I'm gonna write it down because.
Yeah, thanks for
the
recommendation.
I loved him in Down with Love. That was a cute movie.
Yes.
Down with Love.
I mean, I enjoy him. I just never knew that he could sing, and I thought that was amazing. But
yeah. So
21 is Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Again, I didn't see this one, so.
And number 20, which is Grease. I thought this would be higher on their list.
But I think we talked about it too before because it was released in 78. And it was released in 78, and it was solely about the 1950s, which I think is kind of funny. Well, kind of funny in a way, because I think we do a lot of throwbacks in Hollywood that we throw back to the time when to another decade.
Yeah. And I mean, and this movie version was actually different than the stage production.
Very much. Very much.
And that's why when they did the most recent one, they made it more like the stage production than they blurred the movie and the stage production together. The one that was released a couple years ago with the guy from Graceland.
Yeah. But I think like when we talk about iconic things, there's certain things that solidify it. And I think maybe because Beauty and the Beast was Disney, and because Moulin Rouge was different than what we'd seen previously as far as musicals were concerned, because it was a tragedy kind of. And then because Grease had people in it that are still acting and visible today, I think maybe that was part of it. But I think, again, with the feel of the 50s, people loved the 50s.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but there's like that, the love of the time period. And so people really enjoyed Grease immensely.
Yeah. So, I want to go back and watch Grease again for some reason.
And then 19 was On the Town. 1949 by MGM.
Yeah.
Yankee Doodle Dandy in 1943 by Warner Brothers. The Bandwagon, this is 17, MGM 1953. So like, I don't know three of those three. I don't.
Well, Yankee Doodle Dandy.
I mean, I know the song.
It is a very popular film, and she mentioned Turner Classic Movies. That's always on Turner Classic Movies. And then we get to number 16, Funny Girl.
1968.
Yeah, I believe Funny Girl. That was Barbra Streisand.
Don't have my glasses on. Yes, it was Barbra Streisand, right?
Yeah.
I think so. Yes.
Yes.
And I
Just
have
looking
never
at the
seen.
years,
I've not
she's
seen
been
the whole
awesome.
thing. I mean, I've not seen the whole thing all the way through. I've seen excerpts and pieces of it when it was like talked about on other things, but I haven't seen the whole thing.
Yeah. So they have Top Hat at 15, and number 14 they have All That Jazz, which Robert Meyer Burnett is always talking about, that everyone should see that movie because it's really good movie. I think I've seen All That Jazz once, like long time ago.
I may have seen it in passing. I just don't recall.
So at 13 they have 42nd Street, and number 12 they have Chicago, the 2002 version.
Chicago was amazing. They did a really good job in that. Renee Zellweger, fabulous.
Was it Richard Gere?
Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Richard Gere was in that movie. Right?
I don't remember. I just remember, I think in 2002, because like 2001 and 2002 tend to be more of was like a sort of a sexual revolution in its own right. Like, I think because they were both had relatively scantily clad women in them. And Chicago is all about the burlesque scene. So I think like we were pushing the envelope, and you have to say the cinematography and the way they were shot were amazing. Like there was some really close up work when Catherine Zeta-Jones is doing the chair dance on the stage. And I mean, there's just something about that glitz and glamour, I think, that caught people off guard as a Hollywood, remake of a musical. I think it was really well done.
Right. And so we get to number 11, which not only is on this list, but it's also on AFI's 100 greatest films of all time, The King and I.
I don't think I ever saw the musical. I don't know.
Never seen that movie.
I don't think I did.
I remember.
Not the whole thing. Like again, bits and pieces as it was like on documentaries and things like that. But
yeah, the great Yul Brynner was in that movie. So we get to number 10. It's Meet Me in St. Louis. Have you guys ever seen that movie?
Maybe with my grandfather. I've seen so many musicals in my life. Sometimes they kind of meld together.
I think when you're little, you don't pay attention to the title. So if you saw it again, you might be like, oh yeah, I did see that. But like I've seen excerpts of that, like little clips and stuff of that one too, along with number 9, American in Paris. I've only seen excerpts and clips of that. Number 8 is My Fair Lady, which has been High School Musicaled a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just make up words. I can't figure out the word, and I just make one up.
And then they have the 1954 version of A Star Is Born as number 7.
Oh.
And that's the one with names.
Wizard of Oz.
Judy Garland.
Yeah.
I did. I'm like Dorothy.
And
then I saw the poster for A Star Is Born, and I'm like, what's her name?
That one was not like about a singer. That one was about an actress being discovered.
Yeah, but there was still.
I mean, there was singing in it, of course. I mean, that was.
But I think in the 50s, I think in order to be an actress, I think you had to be able to sing in a way. Like, I think there was like an understood way that this was how you were going to make it in the business. Yeah, you could dance and you could sing and you could act, so therefore you were kind of going to do okay. And then number 6 is Mary Poppins, and I think that Mary Poppins, while it was Disney, I think it opened a lot of eyes to the world of people that we were seeing on TV, but we didn't realize necessarily had that kind of chop. Like I mean, we knew Dick Van Dyke could sing and dance, but to see him play another role where he was singing and dancing, and that was the goal, I think that. And
then, of course, the beautiful Julie Andrews.
And Julie Andrews had made kind of a life for herself in musicals. She was in The Sound of Music, which is number 4. But they put right in between Mary Poppins and The Sound of Music, they put Cabaret. And I think Cabaret, again, kind of was that whole.
I think a lot of high schools have done that one too.
Which is funny.
See, I don't think Cabaret was very popular where I grew up.
Small town America, maybe not. Slightly more, conservative towns, maybe not. But I just think it's funny that Chicago and Cabaret make the list, not for the singing, but more for the subject matter.
Yeah.
Right. And
again, with the burlesque kind of.
And of course, as you mentioned, number 4 is The Sound of Music, which, again, that's another one that high schools have put on.
But I also think that The Sound of Music also has roots in pop culture. So, like, everybody knows,
like this. I didn't know that the story was actually based on true people until later on in life, when I actually was told that watching the film with my mother-in-law, and she goes, "Yeah, this is based on a true family," and it's like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
So which I think is what makes it more popular with certain people, is having the reality aspect come into play as well.
Yeah, so we're looking at the top 3 here, and there's no arguing that these are probably the top 3 of most people's musical list. Number 3 is The Wizard of Oz. Number 2, West Side Story, and number 1 is Singing in the Rain.
So, but I think that the top, I would probably say the top 4 have real roots in our pop culture. Like, they are considered iconic. And I think that
these movies.
Well, and a lot of certain ways that were portrayed, like certain dances, are reminiscent of Singing in the Rain, or reminiscent of West Side Story, or reminiscent of The Wizard of Oz, or, and we put The Wizard of Oz out there as, very pop culture in the way we describe people and places all the time.
I mean,
Like,
if
we
you
have-
look at Seth MacFarlane's stuff, he's constantly referencing musicals from the past. That's like he's done he's made fun of Westside Story. He's made fun of Singing in the Rain. If there's anybody who should be doing musicals, it should be him. And
I think too, though, because they're so relevant in pop culture, maybe that's why he uses them, because they would be relevant to just anybody that's watching his.
And speaking of Seth, I mean,
programming.
he's actually a legit singer. The dude, I mean, most voice actors can sing, but like I've heard him actually like sing, not like a parody type song. The dude's really good.
It's because you have to have a certain control over your voice, and to be able to reproduce something that, you're consistently doing. Like when you voice and it's your voice, that's one thing. Like anybody can probably act with their own voice, but to be able to create a voice and then reproduce it weekly or monthly or daily, like that takes control of your vocal cords and your ability.
I remember we always would go to at MegaCon where they get the cartoon voice actors to read movie scripts and stuff. It's they would get whoever's at MegaCon, they would get the voice actors. They would come in and they would have a movie script. So like one year it was Lord of the Rings, one year it was Ghostbusters, another year was Back to the Future, and what they would be like. So, for instance, they had the voice actors of Animaniacs. So they were like, well, you're going to read, this part, but you're going to read it as in this voice. And so I
saw the video. I saw the video of the Pinky and the Brain reading Pulp Fiction. That is hilarious.
But yeah, like in their Q&A part, they would talk about like a lot of them are trained singers because that's how they get into voice acting is you have to be able to sing.
Well, it's control over your voice.
But so that was the Hollywood Bowl's top 25 musicals
of musicals.
So we're looking at this list.
So,
I mean, there's,
and I guess I'm just gonna talk about the 50s, like, because the 50s I think was kind of
it was pretty much like all musicals.
Well, I think they really they televised a lot of them, and they became like the things that we were looking for. So like all of our musical theater at this point, I think a lot of it comes from the 50s. So like,
well, the original jazz singer.
Well, Calamity Jane, which was mentioned in the comments. So Doris Day was in Calamity Jane. Court Jester, the Court Jester had Danny Kaye in it. So I think like a lot of our musical knowledge comes from the movies of the 50s because a lot of them were really musical. Like, it's interesting. It's funny because by the light of the silvery moon, like that's a line in the song. Yeah, I'm not going to sing it. Unfortunately, I do not have control over my vocal range like some people. But Peter Pan, a lot of the stuff that, I mean, the ones that I know, like our in high school, our drama club did Brigadoon. They did, I would have to probably see a title, but like they did Brigadoon, and like they built the set, they made their own costumes. They had an invention of whatever story they wanted to tell. So a lot of it comes from the 50s. So a lot like Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Which recently, well, not so recently, but in the decade or so, Hugh Jackman did Oklahoma.
And then
Jackman is fabulous in musicals.
Well, he started in musical when he got hired.
He started in musical theater. He is a theater trained actor. So
when he got hired to play Wolverine in that first X-Men movie, he was just coming off of Beauty and the Beast as Gaston.
Oh wow!
And there was a lot of ish. Like they took a lot of issue. Like I already have a song and dance man play Wolverine, and it's like you sell people short. Like theater trained actors have a range of ability that I think we don't quite give them credit for.
Right.
Yeah.
Plus, if you're stage trained, on top of that, like if you're stage trained, there's a lot of acting that you do with your body and your face because they don't have the big budget Broadway stuff. Like if you're sitting in a theater, it's a very intimate place. Like you're watching these people and they're acting with their body and they're acting with their face and they're acting with, not just their voice.
Right. And then, also in like the 50s and 60s, you had like the Beach Party movies, and of course the Elvis Presley movies.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of the Elvis movies that
in the
I've
50s,
seen them all, but
in the 50s though, there was also the Mickey Mouse Club, and a lot of that kind of bred it, made it more of a household name too.
There's a couple right there, South Pacific and Damn Yankees.
Yeah. And then like you said Elvis Presley, like
King Creole,
Love Me Tender, Blue Suede Shoes, like
Jailhouse
they were
Rock.
all Jailhouse Rock. I mean, a lot of them, even if you weren't a fan of the musical, of these musicals. Like,
right?
It's just part of our pop culture life.
Yeah.
It's so funny because one of the Elvis movies, It Happened at the World's Fair, was the first time we saw Kurt Russell. If you've ever seen that movie, Elvis is...
what is it?
It happened at the World's Fair.
Okay.
Elvis is standing and there's like a little kid. He had to have been like, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 years old. Kicks him in the shin.
Russell?
It's Kurt Russell.
Oh.
And then Bill Bixby was in a couple of the Elvis movies as well.
But then there's other movies or other musicals. You said South Pacific,
which is another one that high schools have.
Which I mean, and they have, but I think like those time periods are timeless. Like those moments in history are timeless, and so we want to retell the story often. It's funny how many there are, like Carousel. I just never like having them on a list is just like, well, I never knew. Why does Jamboree stick out in my head?
I think that's another one, like a Western.
Okay.
What do you guys think of Fiddler on the Roof?
It's interesting because that one's also made a pop culture influence, I think. So did my high school do it? I think my high school did it.
I know both of my high schools did it.
And I think like I don't remember that one as well. Isn't it about help me?
Oh.
Which one is it?
I'm looking here at 1961. 1961 had Babes in Toyland, Blue Hawaii, Gidget Goes Hawaiian, The Parent Trap, and Westside Story. Oh, also The Young Ones and Wild in the Country. Like, wow, there was a lot of good musicals that year. But The Parent Trap, I love The Parent Trap.
Love The Parent Trap.
Haley Mills.
Probably because it was Disney. Like, I think I think Disney introduced us to a whole different kind of appreciation for musical, but also that kind of like fun storytelling. Like, you know,
I mean, The Music Man. I know a lot of school productions have done it.
We did it.
Oh,
I'm sure we did. But like Fiddler on the Roof, I think it tells a story too, like a timeless one. Because isn't it? I don't want to say Russian. It's not Russian. Help me.
Is it German?
Is it? It is. It's set in a specific time period, and it's set in a specific culture, and I cannot think about it. I see it.
Hey Terry, if you can look that up for us.
Fiddler on the Roof is based on Tivy. Oh my God, I can't read. I'm so sorry, guys. A series of stories by Shalom. Sorry, just reading off Wikipedia. Jewish. Life in the Village. 1894 and 1914. Jewish life in the village of Pale settlement of Imperial Russia.
Okay.
Turn of the 20th century.
Okay, so there was Russian culture in there. I don't think I've seen it. Like, I've not all the way through. Again, I really probably should know more about this. But it's interesting because, like, I wonder if
it was popular where I grew up because of the Russian influence on our culture out here. Living out in Steinbach is Mennonite, so it's very.
You guys have a huge Jewish population as well?
Winnipeg does, but not so much like the Mennonite-ish areas of Manitoba. But yeah, Winnipeg definitely has a huge Jewish population. And I'm not, like, oddly enough, the musicals that were very popular here are very popular here. Phantom of the Paradise is huge here. Even though it was technically a flop. Yeah, we play it constantly here. We've invited several of the actors here from that movie, and I think we're pretty much the only town that's sustaining that movie now. And Rocky Horror Picture Show is also very popular here.
That's the Beatles one right there, Hard Day's Night.
Yeah, but I think Rocky Horror Picture Show has a cult following, probably because
every playhouse, not even just high schools, but playhouses put that on. Shadowcast is what they call them, right?
Mm-hmm. But also there's that whole I can get involved in, any musical where there's involvement from the crowd. Like, I think that even if it's something that happened after the movie or the production, like, it just became part of what happened. Because I know that they show it around Halloween. I understand. I mean, it has a cult following.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of that maybe comes from Tim Curry and in just that love of the character and the way he played it. There was that whole, like, you always knew Tim Curry was over the top.
Yeah.
And he was over the top in that movie. And he made Frankenfurter that, like, iconic character that I don't think anybody can really ever truly recreate.
Susan Sarandon was in that movie too, right? And Barry
Bostwick.
Yeah.
But, like, and I think that it's always nice to see that people still love their involvement in that movie. Like,
it's like every year at a sci-fi convention that I go to called KeyCon, we play it as part of like a triple film set or musical set. We do that's actually the Rocky Horrors at the end. We play Buffy the Vampire Slayer's musical episode. And then we also do the sing-along blog, Dr. Horrible sing-along blog. And it's funny because like getting the crowd involved through all three films or musicals, we shout out things. We come up with like little banter words to shout out during certain scenes, and it's just incredible. I shouted out during one year during Dr. Horrible sing-along blog that Joss guns don't kill people, Joss Whedon kills people. And every time I have to fight someone to say it.
It's just, I think when everybody comes together to really love something, that kind of display of like going and watching it together with a whole bunch of people that are like-minded and love something that much, I think that just heightens the beauty of whatever.
Can we just say how much of a genius he is?
We'll get there. Because I am going to see that. I don't know how, but I am going to see it, and I'm not going to just watch it on TV. But it before we go there, when we talk about like the 60s and a lot of the Elvis Presley stuff, but like
about every year he had. It
was always funny because it was Elvis Presley was part of it, but there was like that beach type, so there's beach party and beach blanket bingo, and like I remember beach blanket bingo, and I don't know why, but I remember it, and then like clam bake and all these other ones that for some reason are part of our lives. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, that's another one that was part of our lives. Yellow Submarine, even though it was animated. A Hard Day's Night, right?
Yeah.
Help. I mean, the Beatles had a lot to do with the 60s, musical type stuff too, because all of their videos were a story. Everything was a story. So there's this like really awesome, build up. And then we talk about like how Disney got involved. And then, as soon as Disney got involved and they started putting out more and more stuff, like the Aristocats and
all their animated stuff.
I mean, everything that had a song in it was considered that.
Yeah, and as you can see, it gets
Huckleberry
smaller.
Finn was a musical in 1974. Wow. I'm sorry, I just was looking at the list. But like we don't realize.
The Muppet movie.
Well, most of the Muppet movies, right?
Yeah.
But like once you hit the 80s, and this is just what I think is great, like you have the mainstream movies now. So you have the Blues Brothers, Fame, Xanadu,
Popeye.
I mean, you have,
and then the remake of The Jazz Singer with Neil Diamond.
Right. I think like the 80s kind of did a push to put them out on, this on the big screen, like the big screen, and then like send them out to DVD, or not DVD then, but VHS and stuff. Cause like I watched a lot of these on VHS.
Fame really, I think that movie, but I think it took off more when they did the TV.
Yeah. The TV show Fame.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't remember who said they wanted to hear us say something about,
well, you did mention Xanadu.
I did say Xanadu.
Willow had some friends that wanted.
Really,
they were pushing me to talk about Xanadu, but unfortunately, I haven't seen that film yet. So
you know what's funny though is everything that's old is new again. So if you really think about like in this last 10 years, a lot of the 80s have resurged back into our culture. So like the whole thing about roller skating kind of like, because I was taking the boys roller skating for a while, and we were skating every weekend. And it was funny because I remember skating when I was little. Like that's where we went Friday night.
Yeah.
We went to the skate rink. So it's just funny that, and then of course, it's Olivia Newton-John. I think we have to give, when you talk about musicals, you have to give Olivia Newton-John a little bit of props.
Right.
Excuse me. Her voice is different. Like it's not belty. Like there are some
She's
singers.
very sweet and very innocent.
Her voice is very.
I also think she was one of the first
soothing.
like Australian pop singers to make it big in the United States.
Yeah, and now she has a cult following.
Right.
Like Olivia Newton-John. Like everybody knows her probably because of Xanadu and Grease, but it's the point.
Well, her album, Let's Get Physical.
Right.
My mom used to play that constantly when I was a kid. And
well, it's like aerobics.
And well, they had two different versions of the video because of censoring.
I can't imagine why. But
I remember getting the aerobics doll, a Barbie doll, as a kid, and it oddly looked like Olivia Newton-John in her physical video.
Exactly. But see, there was so much of our childhood in the 80s that I didn't realize was musicals.
I mean,
so like, 1981, The Fox and the Hound, still one of my most favorite movies, and The Great Muppet Caper. Like, I was a kid. I was a Jim Henson fan and a Disney fan, and if those movies were coming out, I was gonna see them. But then in 82, I mean, like Annie has done its rounds in High School Musicals and Broadway and everything. So I think the
TV
pop culture,
yeah,
pop culture, Annie was huge. The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds.
Dolly Parton.
I love that one.
Reynolds. And even though it was 1982, I saw it much later. Much later.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That one at the bottom, you don't have to. Nobody
cares.
Yeah.
That one's terrible. But like Pink Floyd's The Wall. So like we were ushering in the world of video. Like the Beatles had done it years before, but we were talking about MTV now having videos on,
making
and
long format.
It was
videos.
long format videos that were telling a story. That where was on TV, like you could actually see it on cable, and it was to a crowd that was bigger than just what the Beatles could reach. And then like Victor Victoria. And I only saw parts of the play.
Yeah. But as we're going through this list, we're seeing the years, like the movies, like in the 50s and 60s, they had, tons on the list. And now we're only, a handful.
Yeah. But if we think about like the importance of certain icons to the
well, Hollywood was
music.
changing too.
Hollywood was changing, but you have to start thinking like the 80s was ushering in a lot of new stuff too. Like the 80s had MTV, Disney was still around. We had a lot of, Kenny Loggins was gigantic in just about everything that he ever put out, like Footloose.
The Top Gun soundtrack.
Dirty Dancing, Top Gun, like those soundtracks are like the soundtracks of our lives. And even though they're not necessarily musicals, they are, soundtracks of our lives. And so we were talking like John Henson, like the Muppets were a big part of that too. Like a lot of the Muppets movies are on here as well. But Eddie and the Cruisers, like that had names. I swear to God, what is my freaking problem? I can see his face, but I can't for the life of me know his name. The guy, I could say that, but nobody's gonna know what I'm talking about. But like Eddie and the Cruisers and, you know, Pink Floyd and Purple Rain and movies like that that were telling musical stories were kind of big. It was who was the
Pierre.
guy?
Michael Pierre was his name. He was a semi-big name in the 80s. He was in a lot of different things.
You're saying his name wrong.
Michael Pierre. It's French.
It's not Pierre.
All right. It's not?
Not Pierre, not the way you're saying it. Pierre is Pierre.
Is it pear?
Probably. I just know it's not Pierre. Sorry, fans. But yeah, Eddie and the Cruisers. I remember that one for some reason. I don't know why.
The one that made two of those movies. Monty Python's The Meaning of Life. Streets of Fire.
Sesame Street. Follow That Bird.
Follow That Bird.
I mean, like literally, like our childhood was laced with musicals. Because we were kids.
I think that's why we didn't know that a lot of things were musicals until we actually think about it. Because I mean, people were singing all our lives, I guess.
Well, and Barbara Streisand was hitting it pretty big with a lot of movie type things. Like she did A Star Is Born, but she also did Yentl, and you know, like she was big in the 80s too.
Yeah.
The Pirates of Penzance. Then they mentioned that again in the 90s when Pretty Woman went to the opera to see Pirates of Penzance.
Yeah.
I don't know why I know that.
I mean, and just look at 86. I mean, Little Shop of Horrors and Labyrinth.
Yep, and Labyrinth still has a true following now today. And stuff like that too, though, because it was related to the time period of like John Henson and the Dark Crystal, and it has its own cult following too. 86 was when American Tail came out too. So good old Fievel was singing. But a lot of them were animated. Like if you really think about it, a lot of the musicals in the 80s were animated because they were marketing it to us, I think. We probably should hurry up and move on. Oh, you know what we forgot to talk about? Well, I just am bringing it up now. I said Eddie and the Cruisers, but movies like American Graffiti and Crybaby, you know, they all kind of followed that 50s theme. You know, all the big tropes that were happening in the 50s, whether they were filmed in the 50s, were part of that kind of like surge of that kind of. I don't know where the sentence was going. The sentence was going to go somewhere.
It's okay.
How do you have a talk show when you don't know how to talk? Oh dear.
But even though like American Graffiti wasn't really a musical, music played a big part in, you know, because they're driving down the street with the car playing the music.
In the music, but I think like there was like a part of the movie was the soundtrack, like the constant music that was in this movie. And again, like I said, the Muppets were a huge part of this. But in 1992, when Kristen Bell was in Newsies, like that was a good movie. Kind of a push again towards musicals, because
that took place in the 20s.
Yeah, in the 90s. I mean, in the 90s, it was kind of, they were like reinventing things from past past decades too. So while that was about the 20s, it was big production dance acts. And, like, I think I watched it on TV, probably not in 92, but on TV. And then they did have Gypsy shortly after that too, in 1993. The TV movie Gypsy.
Yeah.
So I think that, like you said,
if you look at this, Cannibal the Musical, which is a trauma film that that I believe it was Matt Stone and Trey Parker helped create that, as well as another film.
You know what makes me laugh though, because we talked about Barbra Streisand in the 80s. The 90s was the another woman took over that mantle of musicals and movies, and that was Bette Midler.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
She did, For the Boys, and
well, earlier she did The Rose.
She did The Rose, and there was just this, like, I think she owned the 90s. Like, Barbra Streisand maybe owned the 70s and the 80s, but Bette Midler owned the 90s. Like, she, when you thought about the face of music in a musical, she kind of owned that. And a lot of them get more and more animated.
It's mostly animated.
Bye Bye Birdie was another one that got a lot of High School Musical love. But you know what's funny? Because we talk about, like,
there was this one
videos, music videos
with Joey McIntyre.
Well, like, music became part of it, but remember, like, Bananarama had that whole Cruel Summer video, was like extended shot video.
Yeah,
it was like, and it was partially animated.
Yeah. And of course, The Nightmare Before Christmas, Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Yeah, like, you think it's funny to think about it, but as the 90s went on, more and more of them became animated. But it's kind of funny to, like, to think about it.
I think the turning point for me with Disney films was when Phil Collins started working for Disney, and he came up with the soundtrack to Tarzan. Beautiful songs.
He also had something to do with the treasure hunt movie, Treasure Planet. Was it Treasure Planet? Oh my God. So, and I've said before, I am not a fan of Phil Collins. I'm sorry. I might be okay with, like, remakes of his music, because they're well written songs. It's just I don't like him. I don't know why. I'm sorry. Sorry, Phil Collins and Phil Collins fans. I just don't know why. I don't know.
Well, the thing is, he wasn't even like the singer of Genesis. He was the drummer, and he took over when Peter Gabriel left.
Maybe that's why. Because I was living in a world of Peter Gabriel, and that's why. I don't know. Anyways. Again, I digress. But Evita with Madonna. Like, I think.
Yep.
Who else was in that movie?
Antonio Banderas. But that movie, I think, kind of talked about, it was another 50s throwback to talk about the life of Eva Peron.
Yeah.
And so by it being kind of like a biopic, people didn't really think about it. But because Eva Peron could sing, and because it was a whole thing, I think when they cast Madonna,
that soundtrack was just great.
And then it reinvented her career also. Like, it put her back in the spotlight.
I believe actually that soundtrack was nominated for a Grammy and might have won.
I think it was. I think it did.
Now I'm going to be singing Don't Cry for Me, Argentina.
I know.
All over the place today.
Right now. And like Selena. So Jennifer Lopez took over the singing portions of Selena. Although
she did a wonderful job in that.
And the fact, the resemblance was striking just in general, like the resemblance was crazy, but she did a really good job in that movie, even though there was something that was just, she did sing and she did act in most of it, but she did have a body double too for something. I don't know. I don't know what parts of the movie it was for, but she had a body double. And like I said, like most of them at this point become animated. A lot of our musical works become animated at this point. But Selena was another music movie that was big. And it was about a real person, and it brought light to the tragedy that was, Selena before she even got to be
as we get
truly Selena.
Even in the 2000s, it is mostly animated.
And now that song stuck in my head too. Woo! I love how things
going back to the 80s of movies that La Bamba was one of those movies that I would watch constantly. And for some reason, anytime that O'Donna would play, I would bawl. I don't know, for some reason that song in particular made me cry as a kid, and I could not figure it out for the life of me why.
Well, and then on top of the tragedy, like the sheer tragedy of that movie anyways, like
and then they had the Gary Busey, the Buddy Holly story that came out as well. But I'll tell you what gets me every time at La Bamba is the scene where the brother's working on the car and the radio comes on. He's like, what the and like he goes to go to see his mom, and she's there with the clothes, and she's just standing there and starts throwing the sheets and the clothes up in the air. And then it has that sad music, and they're showing the funeral. And then the brother gets on the bridge where they had both stood earlier, and he just screams out, Richie.
Yeah.
I think maybe because all of the music ends up becoming part of what is like, it was a life cut way too short. Like,
yeah,
if he had been alive to be part of that time, how would it have changed the voice and the music of the time?
I know. I mean, like in that was real. The whole where they flipped the coin for the bus. He could have taken the bus or taken the bus or got the plane ride, and then he ended up being on the plane.
Well, and I think the story of Richie Valens and Buddy Holly just in general is like, we consider it sad because a lot of the greatest, of the 50s were cut down way soon.
What was the other movie? I believe it was in the 80s, the Patsy Cline movie.
Yeah. It's just, I think we hold on to that because we hold on to those moments in music because we didn't get a lot of them. Like they didn't live. That's what we have to live on.
Yeah.
Is those stories.
And I don't know if this one is considered really a musical, but it was the one with Kathleen Turner, had Nicolas Cage, and she gets in a coma or whatever, and she goes back in time when she was younger.
Look it up.
So I'm gonna look it up right now.
But like we talk about animated films, but then there's certain films that were musical, like Glitter.
Peggy Sue Got Married.
Peggy, but that wasn't a musical.
It had singing in it.
Yeah, okay,
it wasn't. It wasn't.
Like parodies of Eight Crazy Nights by Adam Sandler. So like it was his song, but it was based the cartoon or the movie or whatever was based on that. 8 Mile was Eminem's slightly slightly autobiographical movie, but it shined a light on rap and, you know, like
His life story, essentially.
and that life in Detroit.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys remember that Falcon from the MCU was in that movie.
Yeah. Anthony Mackie.
Anthony Mackie, yep.
But then, like, it just kind of like doing a quick rundown of some of the things that we love, because
see, in 2003, The Music Man, the television film, that's the one with Matthew Broderick, I think.
Yeah. And then
he does a great job in The Producers.
The Producers?
Yeah.
Oh.
And I think
but even the original Producers I thought was pretty good.
I
mean, it's Mel Brooks.
It's Mel Brooks. So I think it's a time period in comedy that you can't duplicate now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But it was also 2003 was also the year of The Fighting Temptations and School of Rock, which are two vastly different things. But I think it was like we needed more music. I felt like it was kind of. Do
you consider that thing you do as a musical, or?
I mean,
it had music in it, but I mean, it was essentially about a fake one-hit wonder band.
I don't know. Would we consider it a musical though? Like, I don't know if I consider it a musical per se, but
not a musical like within the standards of what like was in the 60s and 50s,
singing
but
and dancing, but it had music in it. I don't know. That's interesting because movies like The Cheetah Girls and From Justin to Kelly make the list.
Yeah.
So why not That Thing You Do and some of the other movies? Because even Cry Baby made the list, and that wasn't really a musical.
Yeah.
But like I said, a lot of them are animated.
Anastasia will always be one of my favorite animated films, though.
Yes.
It's funny, like a lot of people seem to forget that it's not a Disney film because it falls along the same lines as a Disney film. But now, you know, it's
right?
it was a Fox film.
Oh,
yeah,
Disney now owns it. So and Anastasia is now a Disney princess, essentially.
Same with like some of the Bluth films that were like All Dogs Go to Heaven and even American Tail, like Fievel and all that. Those characters were not Disney characters, but because they were owned by Fox.
No.
Universal.
Those are Universal. Those are
Universal.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Again.
But what does everyone think of the Phantom of the Opera with Gerard Butler?
I didn't see it.
You didn't see that one?
I have the original.
I always go back to like the one that you're gonna see on like the TV, and it's never been Gerard Butler. I wouldn't mind seeing that.
I'm sure he did a good job. I feel really bad that I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it though. But okay, the Phantom of the Opera really isn't something that I'm going to watch on a daily basis. Because again, there's a lot of tragedy in that too.
Yeah. So when we get to like 2006, that's when High School Musical comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And talk about a phenomenon. That blew up. I don't think Disney knew what they had when that came out.
But then it was like they had Camp Rock and they had the Cheetah Girls doing the second movie. They had a lot of those high school, you know.
And then you had like Tenacious D.
And The Pick of Destiny. Yeah. But there were a lot of like parodies too. Because in 2005, you were talking about The Producers. You know, like in 2005 was producers, and Rent made a huge impact on theater at that point. Like the producer was huge, and so was Rent.
Mhm.
So like, I think in 2005, I saw Rent on TV. It was the like the TV movie one.
Yeah.
Like, so then like the song got stuck in my head. But I think probably because we were by that time 25-ish, you know, and we were in our 20s, I think, and because the AIDS epidemic was such a thing, like we'd lived through most of it. I think that's why Rent was so big, because there was a lot of overtones about you know, sex and AIDS and, you know, just living in New York City at the time. But
Yeah, see, they talk about Rent. See,
I like
if
Rent.
you've seen Avenue Q, which is basically Rent with puppets.
Dirty Puppets at that.
Well, yeah, Avenue Q is actually really, really good.
Dirty Puppets. I'm sorry, I'm a Muppet girl. It's very hard to watch Dirty Puppets. It's very hard to watch puppets that swear.
I remember seeing it in Vegas when it
Crank
was on the
Yankers
strip.
too. That's the other thing. Crank Yankers is really hard for me to watch because I'm like, why? Maybe that's why I'm
So
not.
the Happy Time Murders is not a movie that you'd like to watch.
I just
no,
have
we
a hard
watched
time.
the Happy Time
We
Murders.
did, but I liked it. I'm just saying, like, puppets that swear are not always my sorry.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them here just
Yeah, but they end up being a lot more animated and TV movie. And
let's go to like what they actually have coming up.
so forthcoming musicals. Well, okay, let's start with 2018. Because 2018 was
Uh-oh.
Missing a page.
Up, man.
There you go.
So 2018 was the year of Bohemian Rhapsody with Rami Malek. It was the year of Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again. It was the year of
Anna and the Apocalypse, which is a zombie Christmas musical. And if you
How
have
did I miss that one?
if you're on Amazon Prime, it is there.
Okay, well, we'll watch that one. That'll be our Saturday night thing, I think. Because I'm like, what? Anyways, but like it was, and Forever My Girl was that year. Freaky Friday came out on TV again. I mean, like,
and then they had the Jesus Christ,
and then they did the in concert of Jesus Christ Superstar. So I think a lot of that resurgence and the love of musicals, and then it gave Mary Poppins another voice because it became Emily Blunt as opposed to Julie Andrews. And that's the year Star Was Born came out with Lady Gaga. So it was kind of like brought all of those movies back and the genuine like musical.
Yeah, and then the Disney Channel original Zombies, which is a musical.
I don't know.
Hey, you got to start somewhere, right?
I just think it's funny how you found a way for horror to be part of this too.
It's on the Disney Channel. It's
Well,
not really
there was the Repo, the musical.
Yeah, Repo, the rock opera.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get that one either.
But let's go to 2019. The Aladdin live action.
The Aladdin live action. Lion King was the photorealistic Lion King. Rent was live on TV. Rocket Man, you notice I'm skipping over that one, right? Rocket Man, and
wasn't there one with like
Yesterday?
Wasn't there? Yesterday was really good.
Yesterday was really good.
Wasn't there the thing?
Don't even
like. What
Don't
are those
it.
things that go to litter boxes?
Okay. Here's the thing. Like,
she doesn't want to talk about something, and I'm curious over here because I don't have the same list they do.
Okay, now
This
because
movie was
he's making me say it.
this movie was torn apart by everybody.
The whole world hated this movie. But as I recall, when it came to Broadway, most of the world hated it as a Broadway show too. So I don't know why they thought
Oh, you're talking about Cats?
Yeah. Now they had some really great songs in that movie. Now don't even get me wrong. Memory is amazing
as well.
And they had a really good cast. And I'm not saying it. Something about CGI cats as with human faces was just not a thing. Like it was bad.
That threw off a lot of people.
I was like, you could have just dressed a whole bunch of people like cats and it would have been fine.
And the
CGI cats.
The CGI wasn't even finished.
It wasn't even good. It was bad.
Like it was so bad that was it Universal? They like within a week sent theaters an updated new digital copy to play in theaters with better CGI graphics.
So why you would mess that up? I don't.
And yet somewhere there's a version of it where they all have buttholes.
Oh boy.
I just
somewhere deep inside me thinks that years down the road, Mystery Science 3000 is going to cover that movie.
Yes. Now, here's what really makes me mad. Like, history repeats itself, and those who do not understand history are probably going to be doomed to repeat it. So if most of the people didn't really love Cats when it came to Broadway, why would you put out a badly made movie? Like, I understand like regenerating that love of the stage, but why? And then do it badly. That's my thing. Like, just if you were going to do CGI all the way through and don't.
I think we all needed the distraction from the bad CGI of Superman's mustache.
Let's not get started.
There are other things about like CGI that they totally screwed up, like Deadpool and Wolverine and all that. But I mean, like I just expected more out of 2019 CGI anyways, but was like, I can't even watch the movie. Like I can't even appreciate Jennifer Hudson's voice. I just can't.
But if you do want to be entertained, I suggest going and reading all the reviews of Cats.
It's the reviews.
Pour yourself a nice glass of wine and read the reviews.
But wasn't A Piece of My Heart? A Piece of My Heart was a Janis Joplin biopic, sort of, wasn't it?
I'm pretty sure it was, yeah.
I mean, I hear the song playing in my head by Janis Joplin, so I'm guessing it might have been. But I think that kind of gave us a nice resurgence into biopics and those 2 years of like putting music into film as musicals.
Okay. Can I also put out there that there's a film, if you liked Yesterday, I believe many of you will like this one. It's called Blinded by the Light, which is a true story that takes place. I want to say it takes place in the 80s because it's all about Bruce Springsteen. It's an Indian family that lives in London, and he wants to come to America. He loves
Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, he writes poems and stuff, and that's what he wants to do. So he wants to come to America to see a Bruce Springsteen concert. So that is definitely a movie.
The same writer and producer that wrote and produced Yesterday.
Yeah, it's the same people. Yeah.
Yesterday was really good. I liked Yesterday.
I'll have to watch that one.
It was very good. But so then when we get to the forthcoming stuff that I'm so excited about, before we talk about TV, because Lord knows musical TV is my life right now.
Yeah, I went on and I found I picked 9 episodes of TV that had musicals, but we're going to get to
so this. In 2020, you were talking about I don't know, what do you call it? Is it a remake? If they're not modernizing it, it's not reimagined. It's a remake, something of Westside Story.
Right.
So it's going to come out in December, maybe, if we can figure this, thing out.
Well, it looks like theaters are going to be reopening. So.
Well, Hollywood has to go back to work.
Well, I just read that
Are they?
Hollywood could go back to work on Monday.
Okay. So then like West Side Story and then of course in 2021 we're gonna see Hamilton actually be.
Well, no,
Oh.
they actually moved
Well,
it.
they're releasing
It's
it.
coming to Disney Plus
Oh,
in
it's coming to-
July this year.
That's right. I did read that. What's
Oh,
my problem?
interesting.
So Hamilton will be on Disney Plus in July. So it'll be interesting. I will actually get to see it with the actual people who did it. And let me just say, Lin-Manuel Miranda is probably
But his whole team that he's
just
gotten together.
the best. His team and his group of people are kind of the best that's come out of theater in come for a long time. Like
Yeah.
he did a lot of I think he composed a lot of the music for Mary Poppins Returns, even though he was in it as well.
I mean, he probably did. I'm not. I wouldn't even. I don't know the exact credits, but I mean, he just has so much to offer. Like when you hear about people talking about Hamilton and it being this huge phenomenon, I mean, really, it was a phenomenon, and especially considering it's about something generally people I don't think would be interested about, and that's history and government.
I mean, for today's world, it's definitely something that really needs to be talked about too. So,
And so just and I always found Alexander Hamilton slightly, like kind of a, he wasn't a very well liked guy, but I always found him fascinating. I did a project on him in high school. But
how many people though out there are fascinating that are not well liked people?
Lots of them. I think that's what makes people fascinating. They're not well liked. Like, I love that movie, and I love the idea that nobody likes you. No.
But that's also they're making a movie version of the stage play of his
In the what?
In the Heights.
In the Heights?
Yeah. It's an actual movie that's coming out
Oh,
next.
okay. So 2021 is In the Heights. The Heights.
In the Heights.
So yeah, that's exciting. More Lin-Manuel Miranda. I can look at that.
This one has me curious. Wicked is actually getting a movie next year.
yay!
I can't wait. I think there are certain voices that I hope are connected to it still. Like from I'm having trouble with my chair.
I actually managed to convince my husband to come with me to Wicked. He's not one for musicals, although I think he kind of has a soft spot for them. He just doesn't want to tell me.
Closeted music fan.
He loved it though. He if it does come back to Winnipeg, we are definitely going to buy tickets.
I want to see it on. I've seen it on like a production or something, like somewhere they talked about it or something. So I've seen like pieces of it.
Did the school in Vegas do it?
No, not Wicked.
One of the schools in Vegas, I could have sworn did it.
We didn't go and see it.
I could have sworn Sawyer.
Sawyer didn't do it. Aladdin. I don't know. I generally has a better memory than mine, but if it's someplace I worked, I kind of know. So I'm just saying I'll be excited. So I'm excited for.
I hope they get
anything new.
Girl from Frozen did Wicked, I believe, right? The Broadway.
Kristen Chenoweth.
Oh, I thought it was the girl from Frozen that was.
I don't think it's Kristen Bell.
No, not her. The other one that does Elsa.
Names.
The one that John Travolta messed up.
Yeah, he messed up the name. What was her name? I can't think of it. God help me.
It's
what was her name?
Idina Menzel.
Idina Menzel.
I thought she was in Wicked.
She might have been. I honestly, I don't know. Click on her and see.
Click on her and see. Well, let's see.
What did we do without Google?
Well, of course, she was in Rent.
She was probably in a lot of things.
She did.
Okay, she was in.
Yeah, she was in Wicked. Yep.
Alpha. The role of
And
Alphaba.
Yeah. Until was replaced.
Well,
yeah.
she's been doing it since '95, so yeah.
Yeah, she was. She was Alphaba.
What does that say? She's married to Tay Diggs.
She was.
Oh well, they divorced in 2014. You know that. Anyways, so there's cool upcoming stuff.
I'm glad that they're doing Wicked for TV, but at the same time, I'm kind of weary about it too because I mean, like how bad some of the TV musicals have turned out.
Was Wicked a book first, then they made it into a Broadway show? Because you have the book.
I have the book. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
I'm not gonna look it up.
Yes.
Anyways, just
so really quick before you read the list, because there's something on there that's not on there, and probably nobody remembers it.
All right. Well, I just wanted to talk about like just TV shows real quick. I'll just name some TV shows that are musical.
Okay, I'm getting there. Shut up.
Okay.
So remember, in the 90s, there was a TV show called The Heights. Had Jamie Walters. So it was all about a band that lived in an apartment together and was it only lasted a couple seasons. It didn't last very long. Yeah. But Jamie Walters' entire song career pretty much stemmed from the show because he was the lead singer of The Heights. Right. Do you remember this?
I remember. I know that song.
So it's not on the list, so I just wanted to give it a mention.
You remember the name of the song?
No, but I probably know the words to it. Names. I'm telling you, I cannot remember the names of people. I can't remember the names of songs. But if you play the song, I know the song. I'm so sure of it. I remember the song. We got to be careful, though. We can't play it on there.
Yeah, we won't play it. But, yeah, it only lasted actually one season.
It was one season. It was a spelling show. It was an Aaron spelling show.
How do you talk to an angel?
Thank you. The name. Now it's in my head. And I'll save the world from seeing it.
See, I think the issue with me is for not seeing that is because I hated 90210 growing up. So I kind of stayed away from the teen drama television shows.
I liked 90210 at first, and then it started getting really weird. And then I ended up watching Melrose Place, which was probably not age appropriate at all. But I prefer, anyways.
My mom got me the Ken doll of Jason Priestley.
I do have to say though, that is what I started liking Luke Perry. So I can't. I can't hate on it. Like, I mean, he was funny. That was the other thing. Like he was a great actor. I didn't think he was a bad actor, but he was in so many really cool, funny things when I was, 15. And so like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I'm like the actual movie with Kristen Swanson. He was in that movie. He was amazing. I loved him. So anyways, but that's 15-year-old me. So I was a big dork back then anyways. Oh wait, some things never change. I'm a dork. But that's okay. It's okay. So I have talked a lot about musicals recently. So we kind of just like batted around a list last night, and Brian looked up a few things. So A lot of the TV shows that have been musical TV shows have really happened in the last, maybe 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
First thing I think we talked about, besides the stuff that's recent, and I'll get to the recent stuff in a minute, but the stuff that kind of stuck out in our heads was Glee. And because it was actually about a Glee club, you know, like, and I think and that made me think about Pitch Perfect too, like, you know, Pitch Perfect and Pitch Perfect 2,
which are really good movies.
I mean, there's a great cast of people that you didn't realize could sing. I mean, like, that's where Skylar Astin, who stars in my favorite show right now, got his start.
We have Supergirl, who was from Glee.
And I mean, like a lot of the people that were in Glee, like
Flash was Grant Gustin was from Glee too.
And Morrison.
Matthew Morrison.
Thank you. Matthew Morrison.
Well, he was in a boy band years ago, and then he was really involved in music and Broadway and everything too. So like he was part of the show too, and I think that's a huge. Yeah, and he just showed up recently on the last season of American Horror Story, 1984. And if you like horror, watch that one because that was a great season.
He doesn't sing.
He has a porn stash.
Oh my god!
Well, the name of the season is 1984.
It's 1984. So, you know, like all of the stuff that we talked about previously when we talked about Xanadu.
Yeah.
Part of the show.
It takes place at a summer camp.
Yeah. They talk about his short shorts and, you know, what's inside the short shorts.
And you actually see what's in the short shorts. But anyways.
But so there's Glee, and so a lot of people, I think I watched the first couple of seasons.
We were still in Vegas when Glee came out.
Yeah, and so I think we watched quite a few seasons of it, and I enjoyed it. It was like that high school, you know, kind of like feel too. It's like that whole Mean Girls versus the Music Kids, and the, you know, like it was pretty much what we lived.
She was in Glee, right?
No. Mo was.
That's what I'm saying. Mo.
Yeah, we'll get there. And then Smash, that was the one with
Catherine McPhee. I think.
Was that Smash?
From American Idol?
Or Nashville?
No, I think it was Smash.
Anyways, Smash. Didn't that have Hayden Panettiere in it too?
That's
Catherine McPhee, Megan Hitty.
Thank you. I was getting the two of them mixed up.
And that show was amazing. Like, too bad the second season didn't go as well. But I have the soundtrack, and I still sing a lot of those songs now. And if they could,
Deborah Messing was in that.
Yeah.
I didn't know she could sing until I saw that show.
I didn't either. I guess I should have known, but I just didn't.
Angelica Houston.
It doesn't mean that they all sang.
Oh, I know.
Jennifer Hudson was in that too.
Uma Thurman.
Huh. So I think I should check probably that out because I think I only saw a couple of episodes. I don't think it was something that I watched, but it was probably on when something else was on. Gallivant, which has Timothy. The guy from Psych.
And it takes place in the medieval days, and it's just hilarious how they do it as a musical.
Very similar. I mean, it's kind of like has a lot of Monty Python kind of. It has a Monty Python feel.
Okay.
Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. I didn't. We haven't watched it.
Yeah. There's a show called Rise.
I didn't watch that show either. And Fosse Verdon.
I've heard people talk about it.
People talk about it. But again, there's so many things that because we don't have live TV, it's things that we, you know, when we stream and we stream what we stream what we watch, I guess. I don't know.
Now, Soundtrack is a Netflix original series, which is on our list.
Yeah, it's on our queue. We're waiting to watch it. But who's in that one?
Who's on soundtrack here?
Because I don't remember.
I think it's Jenna
Dewan.
Yeah, the ex-wife of
So, and it has Paul James, Callie Hernandez, Madeline Stowe, Christina Milian, Mega Ferguson, Jamil French.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't really know what is it's a musical drama exploring the love stories that connect an eclectic group of people living in Los Angeles. Flashbacks reveal how the characters came to be in the present day, which often involves attempts at romance. The diverse and disparate members of the group have their lives told through the music that lives inside of their hearts and minds. Soundtrack features performances of songs by such musical legends as Whitney Houston, Dolly Parton, Joni Mitchell, and along with contemporary artists like Demi Lovato and The Weeknd.
And that is on Netflix.
Okay, so yeah, I'm probably going to have to watch that show because it seems very similar to my favorite show on TV right now.
Yeah.
Well, it's not on TV right now, but it's on Hulu and I've watched it twice. I have problems.
So in other words, it's worth getting Hulu. It's worth getting
binging and
then
but there's 2 shows on Disney Plus that are all about music, but it's more of a resurgence. One of them is a resurgence. So it's High School Musical, the series. So it's
about the high school that they filmed the movie High School Musical at, putting on
the musical of High School Musical at the high school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It is interesting.
And it's an actual TV show, but it's told like documentary style. So like you see what goes on, but then you see like the character sitting in a chair talking to a cameraman
about the musical.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting. It's interesting. That's all I can say. It's interesting. And then Encore, where Kristen Bell
and this is a reality show.
It's a reality show, but it introduces the encore presentations of certain years where High School Musicals were put on, and it rejoins the cast where they get to do it one more time. So it's kind of it's like they've done Annie,
which was my high school in San Diego,
and then a high school in Flint that put on
and it's from different years too. Like,
so it's different years, like 1970. So all of them get together and they, get back into, singing and dancing and all that, and putting on a nearly Broadway type production. Like they bring in like people in the industry to fill in the gaps to put on this musical.
And they have like an actual Broadway director,
wardrobe and directors and singing coaches and stuff to, take these kids who, that was probably their only time on stage. A lot of them was the only time on stage, but they look back on it in such, happiness. I mean, I think some of us look back at high school in a super positive light, and some of us look back at it negatively, but those people are always part of your, dare I use a pun, soundtrack of your life. So the people are always part of your life. So that whole reuniting part where, you get back to see people that you hadn't seen in
some of the people
years
are friends and seen and see.
When some of them are still local. I mean, they put it on at a local place. They usually put it on at their high school, but it was Flint Northern. So like the episode that had Flint Northern, they'd already torn down and condemned. Well, they hadn't torn down, but they condemned the building. So Flint Northern was closed and they didn't have access to the building anymore. So they did it at Swartz Creek High School, which is actually closer to where I grew up. And they put on the presentation there because it was the closest, biggest venue that they could put on the show. But it's interesting to hear them talk about, you know, how it was in high school and who they were in high school and how they are now and how they wished that, you know, it kind of tells their stories about how they got involved in theater and why it's so important for them to come back.
And not only is she the host, like she's the producer of the show. It's her production company that puts on the show because she is a theater. When in high school, that's all she was doing, you know. She did Broadway.
She grew up in Michigan. So like I have lots of love for Kristen Bell and Dax Shepard, her husband. So, but it's just interesting to listen to them talk about high school and some of them talk about it being, you know, 40 years ago. Like, you know, I mean, anybody that did it 40 years ago and then does it again. Like they were talking about how the lines to the show, like learning the lines to the show and remembering how to make their mark and sing and the dancing. Like, can you imagine being 40 years older, putting on a show where you're singing and dancing? I mean, like, I'm only 22 years out of high school, but I don't know that I could do it. Don't ask me to march a show from high school. I die. And not to mention, I don't think I'd remember how to play it. Like, one, I wouldn't remember how to play it. And then two, I wouldn't remember how to, well, I could probably march it still, but I'd probably die because I probably could do the two things at the same time because I'm 20 years older and too many pounds heavier. But yeah, I mean, like, it talks about that too. They talk about having to like fix lines and feed them lines or, you know, help them remember just how to do those things. Like, I mean, some of them, the songs probably live on, but the dialogue probably doesn't.
Yeah. But that is a great series, especially like when people are reconnecting and like they go through the they have like a coach there where they tell them to close their eyes and remember when they were in high school, and then they tell them to look to their right or to their left, and you see yourself there, your younger self, and what would your today self tell that
your younger self?
So
there's some heartstring pulling too, which there's been a couple of episodes that made me cry, and I'm like, this is a reality show. Like, why are you making me cry? But I mean, I think about myself when I was in high school, and I don't know that I'm a much different person, but I've also lived through. I've also lived through and come to terms with a lot of things about me then and me now. Like, and it's not like it's, I mean, it's stuff that everybody's gone through, you know, like it's gone identity and all the things that go along with that, you know, your general looks, your weight, your dare I say sexuality. I mean, like all of those things, you're trying to figure life out when you're in high school. Yeah. And it is, I mean, I always say there's no amount of money that you could give me to go back. But if I got to keep what I know now, I'd go back. I would wreak havoc. It would be so bad.
I regret the fact that I ended up using drama as like a fill-in course in my last year of high school because at that point I'm like, I'm graduating. I want out. You know, quitting was not an option for me. I figured, you know what, I'm almost done. I'm not going to give up. And I have like one more year left in my foster home. I'm graduating. I'm getting the hell out of here. And I need out of the city as well. So I found drama my last year and I loved it. And it's like, I chose culinary arts as my major, but I was having so much fun, more fun in drama than what I was having in culinary arts. And I'm like writing my own play, writing, you know, being able to perform in a group and everybody like having their own input. It was just so much fun. And now it's like, as an adult, I wish I can kind of go back and see what, you know, see if I can actually do the acting.
I wonder if a lot of the growth that I'd gone through after the fact wouldn't have been much easier if I hadn't been involved, because I had friends that were involved. I went and shot every show that my high school put on. I went and saw every show that the middle school that I worked at as a teacher, my first, 7 years of teaching, every show they went and put on. So there was that piece of I think musical and even theater and music in general that I think being involved with that group of people, it gave you a sense of home. Like, it kind of made it easier. Like, high school sucks. I mean, it did. It sucked for me. Like, but I also know that there's a lot of things about my life that because I went through it in high school, I dealt with it better when I was an adult. And so a lot of the things that would normally be an issue for certain people weren't an issue for me. And I didn't, end up on drugs or, doing things for, money that wouldn't make people proud. I didn't end up doing those things because it wasn't, I just learned better ways of handling it. But I wonder if I wouldn't have been able to deal with certain things better if I hadn't been involved in other things too.
Yeah. Before we talk about this one, we'll just mention this as we're.
Yeah, because I'm going to talk about it like an obscene amount.
So one of the other TV shows that is musical based is the spinoff of Riverdale called Katie Keene.
Oh no, I haven't. I
only recently heard about it.
I tried putting up with Riverdale.
Well, the thing is about Katie Keene is more about character trying to make it in Broadway. So there's a lot of musical numbers in this. So it's just spin-off based on because it's an Archie character.
Mm-hmm. But it's totally a spin-off because it's an Archie character. But also, just to preface that, like, the Archie characters are seriously reimagined in the show.
Yeah, but they're also seriously reimagined in the comics because you have.
Well, okay, the Archie, 50 years ago is a whole lot different than Archie 20 years ago, and I get that, but like,
I mean, Archie's fighting zombies now, so.
Okay, well, anyway. Zombies again.
Okay, and then before we get to this last TV show that's based on musicals, I just want to say that when we were covering movies, we didn't mention La La Land, which I think we should have talked about that because it did win a lot of awards, and so I think that
it was also like if you think about it was recognized by the Academy a lot.
Yeah, and I just think that shows that there is still a love for musicals.
Yeah, but I think that was different. Oh,
Josie and the Pussycats.
Josie and the Pussycats just popped up again. So, and you know what though? It's the things that we love. Like, we never really got rid of Scooby-Doo, and that's kind of like Josie and the Pussycats is kind of a spin-off of Scooby-Doo.
They came from Archie, I thought.
Yeah, they came from Archie.
But they were also on Scooby-Doo multiple times.
Oh, yes, the old cartoons, I remember.
Believe me, I've seen every episode of Scooby-Doo probably twice.
Yeah. So this last TV show that's based, it is a musical.
Sabrina the Teenage Witch was a spin-off of Archie too.
Yeah.
But her Netflix show is much different,
darker.
Yeah, that version actually falls in line with the CW Riverdale.
But if we think about it, like okay, but think about the 50s and what we know about the comedy or the comics, and then think about life in general of how it probably really was in high school, because I'm sure that is not how it was. I am sure that they were doing stuff in the 50s they weren't supposed to be doing.
What?
Okay, I
did not know that.
I definitely missed a lot of Archie.
I think now that vampires are involved, I might have to get involved.
We're gonna have to look for some graphic novels.
Yeah.
I think the last time I really collected Archie comics was like 95, 94. Around that time.
Even back then, though.
I mean, I'm not a huge Archie fan, but I will tell you that their comics are a good read.
Yeah.
I enjoy them, but like this is cool to know. Like now I might be a part of the Riverdale. I mean, I don't know. Like that genre of show, like that CW genre of show has to be a certain kind of show for me to be interested in it. Like when Vampire Diaries, okay, first of all, Vampire Diaries is written by LJ Smith and it was here before Twilight. So that first
season?
teen vampire show that came out was a long, like I read the L.G. Smith novels in the Vampire Diaries in 1993, maybe 94. And she also had The Secret Circle, which was a short-lived CW show as well. But I read that series of books too. So like that kind of show has to be, I take it with a little bit of a grain of salt because the Salvatore boys were there was some differences to the book that I take a little bit of issue to. So I'm assuming that there's probably differences to the characters as well in like Riverdale and Sabrina too. But I enjoy Sabrina, but I think I enjoy Sabrina because that's my type of show. Like that's my genre. Like
Yeah.
witches and crazy shit is my kind of show.
The thing that kind of throws me off about that series, like Archie and Sabrina, is the forced acting a lot of them try to do. I mean, like they have both shows have theatrical actors trying their hardest to almost outact the other actors who are actually trying to do a good job of acting. And
Jughead is Cole
Sprouse.
Yeah, which started as a Disney actor.
But if you think about it,
well, I know he started
there's
on
so much overacting in those shows that it pisses me off.
Cole Sprouse, the Sprouse twins were the twins on something before Big Daddy. They were the twins. They were the Full House twins. They were Nikki and weren't they? No, they weren't. Wrong twins. They were They were acting before Big Daddy. But yes, they were in Big Daddy. Both of them, because I think they were too young still. Because I think he was only 8. The kid from Big Daddy. So, but here's the thing: like you're only as good as the people around you too, and you're only as good as the people that are creating the show.
Yeah.
So look them up. Look up the Sprouse twins. But I think that if you get that overacting, like it might be coming from producers and directors and stuff that's like make it over the top or whatever. Because even some of the acting within the Vampire Diaries, which is a very similar like reimagining of a universe, like I think that sometimes comes from whoever's written the show or is directing the show, because I think that some people are better actors than they get credit given to, and that's because they have to work with certain people. Like, I mean, because when one of who was in the Fault of Our Stars, 5 Feet Apart.
That was Cole.
Cole Sprouse was in 5 Feet Apart, and I thought he was amazing. So, I mean, I can't. And but he's Jughead, right?
Yeah, he is Jughead.
Same. I don't know. They're twins. It's very hard to keep them separate.
No, the other one doesn't act no more.
Okay. So the one that is still acting, he's been in these other things too. So he can't act. It's just
he is one of the good actors in Archie. And well, Luke Perry was a fantastic actor as well.
They were the friends, the kid on Friends, Ross's son.
Yeah.
The Sprouse brothers was that kid, Ben. I remember I was like, hey, I kind of grew up with them.
Now, okay, I never really watched it, but I know bits and pieces of it. The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, they were the twins on that as well, weren't they?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I work with so many young people that like I kind of absorb their information. And
It's just like,
Hannah Montana is one of the things that they talk about constantly, and I kind of feel bad that I never actually watched it, but
I kind of feel like I was too old to watch Hannah Montana at that point. Like I'm at least 5 years older than Miley Cyrus, at least, if not 10. I probably am 10.
But I mean, I like the modern take on Gem. Don't get me wrong.
You know what? I did like the new Gem and the Holograms movie.
So did I.
I was a fan of the cartoon, like a big fan of the cartoon. So I think like it wasn't terrible. Like it was a nice reimagining of it. It told a decent story. And how do you wrap up seasons of a cartoon into a movie? I'm not, like people have to write these things. I get it. Yeah. So Terry says they were in Big Daddy with Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
But it was both of them. It wasn't one of them because they're still too young.
Well, yeah, because they had to switch them off.
Yeah.
With child labor.
Yeah, they did the same thing. Yeah, they did the same thing in Full House with the twins there.
But it's just interesting when we talk about like the changes to shows, which we totally got off track there. But I guess Katie Keene I can't remember the character from Archie. Just in my knowledge, my oh my God, that's so bright.
Oh.
Your screen is bright.
I'm sorry.
They definitely added, like, in the 2000s, added more characters to the Archie comic world. Blossom came in, and I kind of read a few comics here and there, but I don't know. Just the classic comics just are a little bit better.
I think anytime you reimagine somebody so that they fit into a new world, it's kind of hard to. You're gonna pick a select group of people to enjoy.
Yeah.
That universe, because I know that I never watched. I mean, I watched the Melissa Joan Hart Sabrina, the Teenage Witch. I watched every episode of that show.
Yeah.
But I was relatively young, so I was still kind of like young enough to identify with the show. And this new Sabrina is a darker version of it, which is more what I'm into now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess it is what it is.
So you want to talk about this last TV show that's based on music?
But currently on television, and I think I've said this on multiple of our shows, and I'm still in love with the show. As a matter of fact, I started rewatching it, and Brian's like, "You're watching that again?"
No, not
like yes.
Not sarcastically.
Yes. Like he says, "You're watching that again," and I'm like, "Uh-huh." I'm watching it
because I like the show too.
So Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist is Jane Levy's new show, and it has a band of incredibly talented singers, and even some people that you didn't really think sung. And you're like, oh, okay then.
And you've mentioned this show many times.
But I've said it multiple times. So I'm like, it has Skylar Astin, and he plays Max, and he was in Pitch Perfect.
Yeah.
And he's been in lots of other things. He also guest starred in Glee, as did Alex Newell, who plays Mo on the show. And I don't know if Jane Levy has been in a lot of things too, but none I think that put her in the forefront is this show has. And I mean, she's amazing. So I mean, I can't say enough about the show. I just love it. But I love it because everything is it's comical because it's over the top, and because it's happening inside of her head. It is a full-on like Broadway production of a song happening in front of her, and nobody else sees it except for her. And so the whole show is exciting because it takes that musical a dynamic, and it puts it into like real life situations, and it's modern songs with kind of a Broadway feel. Like,
Yeah.
That's what she was.
because she was in Suburgatory, and she was in
The 2000.
the remake of Evil Dead, and then she was in Don't Breathe. So she's beautiful. I didn't know she could sing. I really didn't. But again, like, I think if you're trained in acting, I think a lot of times you can also do those things as well. So it has Jane Levy as Zoe Clark, and she has this headache in the first episode, and she goes in and has an MRI, and an earthquake hits when she's in the MRI machines, and she comes out being able to hear people's, what she calls, heart songs. So whatever they're thinking or feeling at the time, she hears what they're thinking or feeling, which is very similar to, I think, Soundtrack.
As a popular song.
And as a popular song. So like when she gets out of the doctor's office and she's going to work,
she hears a
songs. Woman on the street talk about how lonely the song is. Lonely.
Is it a Celine Dion song?
I don't think so. I don't know. I can't remember.
Which one? Like, all by myself.
Yeah.
And so it also has John Clarence Stewart, which
is a Broadway
actor, and Peter Gallagher and Lauren Graham. So like, I didn't know Lauren Graham could sing.
Me either, until I saw that one episode. The one episode that I watched only, unfortunately, but
I love the show. So and I didn't know. I mean, I knew Andrew Leeds could sing, and I knew that Mary Steenburgen could sing, even though she's not a super strong singer. But I did not know that Peter Gallagher sung, and so hearing him sing was like, that's interesting too. So it kind of like, there's like a Broadway feel to the show. And while it does tell a story, it definitely is a musical TV show.
These are albums he's released.
I did not realize they were the same person. Okay, leave me alone. I'm an idiot. Whatever. I did not realize they were the same person. And for whatever reason, just hearing him sing on that TV show was just that much more powerful. But it does hold a lot of heartstrings for me, having that whole, like, you know, my dad is gone kind of feel, and that whole, like, that loss that goes, and how it affects everybody. And being able to hear it in music is kind of like, I think for a lot of us, music tells our stories in such a way that it's very raw and genuine. And
his version of this is really good. And you love that song.
Oh, Leave Right Now?
Yeah.
Oh, dear God. This is not fair. I'm just learning all kinds of things today. But then there's people that I'd never seen on anything on like TV. Like, I'd never actually, like, I didn't realize like Skylar Astin was the same person as in Pitch Perfect. And I didn't realize, because he'd been in other things, but I never really realized it was him. And I was like, this guy is adorable, and man, he can sing. And I definitely have a type, apparently. But
he's got the best voice.
I definitely have a type on both sides of the fence. But who was the other guy? Oh, Michael Thomas Grant. He plays Leaf, right?
Right. He's the blonde.
So the guy who plays Leaf, you took the picture away.
They don't have it. He doesn't
have a picture. Why doesn't he have a picture? He should have a picture. But the guy who plays Leaf and the guy who plays Tobin, and they both are, you know, they're supporting characters, but they both have you can't see it.
It's
too bright.
Yeah.
But why is it all the way up?
I don't know.
That's, you still can't see it.
had it.
Give it. Yeah, you can't see it. Anyways, we didn't upload any pictures because I don't know what we were doing. But life. But I think his
girlfriend is Evan Rachel Wood.
Okay, well, there you go. But he's got a truly like Broadway voice. Like, that's what I feel a Broadway voice is. So I think probably Skylar Astin has that true Broadway feel voice too.
Can we just say how good Skylar was on Lip Sync Battle?
Oh my God. It was great.
What did he do?
You have to check it out. So what was the song that he sang?
Oh my god, because everybody does too.
Like they do 2 songs, and they generally, like, if they're really into it, they'll like dress up the part.
Yeah.
So he was like, it was the funniest gender bending like lip sync I'd ever seen in my life. He had like a sparkle, like
he did MILF and
Where Are You Now? Okay, I saw it pop up here.
Yeah, MILF and Where Are You Now? And it was so hilarious.
I'm gonna
like I said, when you're a stage actor, you act with your face.
Yeah.
So all of that, like all of got excited and
yeah, I put
choked
that
on my own
performance
saliva.
right up there with Tom Holland's.
And Tom Holland's was a really good lip sync battle. So if you ever want to like,
watch
the show,
I'll actually watch it all day. They'll play it consistently on one of the channels on TV, and so I'll turn it on when I have a day off and just watch it all day. It's fun.
Yeah, they upload everything to their YouTube channel.
It's hilarious.
The Rock even did one. Oh my god.
And you take these, I mean, because they're no strangers to acting, and there's no strangers really to the stage, but it's just funny to see their take on a lot of them. It's just hilarious. But so there are musical episodes. So there was a musical episode of Lucifer, but it wasn't really a musical episode. It was kind of like a musical like montage at the beginning. And he lifts Kevin Alejandro up in the air. It was just a funny little section of the episode, and I cannot remember what episode number or season. But it was hilarious because it was like in the police station. My children are trying to kill each other, I think. Yeah. Anyways, I don't think either one of them are dead, but they're getting in trouble, I think. But yeah, it was just like a montage at the beginning of an episode. So I had to put that in there for honorable mention. But we made a list because we were talking about like
some shows I didn't realize had musicals.
Shows that had a musical episode. And so we talked about Dr. Horpel's sing-along blog, but Buffy the Vampire Slayer's Once More with Feeling we talked about, and that's got its own cult following. I mean, like, go to any convention where nerds are prevalent, you're gonna see an airing of that shit
which is funny because there's people who I know that are totally against filking, which is fandom made music, usually spoofs of certain songs. But they love the musicals and episodes of certain musicals or TV shows turned into music.
To say how popular this Buffy episode is, I'll just say San Diego Comic-Con, the biggest comic convention in the world, you have to line up. If you want to get into it, you have to line up hours before.
It's usually in Hall H. Or in the ballroom. Is it usually in the ballroom?
I think it's in one of the big ballrooms.
It's in the biggest possible room because they know, and people will watch the entire day's programming so that they can be in that room when that happens. So, I mean, it's a huge. Now Buffy the Vampire Slayer has a huge following, anyways. Like it does, but like this episode in particular, I think it's because of the fan, like we get involved, like we're part of it. And I think I probably think that one is the most probably the most prevalent.
Yeah.
The rest of them we had to dig for a little bit. But even ones that we didn't think would have a musical, like I remember Scrubs had a musical, it's called My Musical. And so did Psych. They had a musical episode.
Yeah.
So James Roday is freaking And so just watching certain things become musicals just make them that much more adorable and lovable.
Like number 3?
That 70s show, so That 70s Musical.
That was actually cute. I like that one.
It was cute, and I enjoyed it. And usually, like the musical episodes ones are they don't come very naturally. Like that one came a little bit more natural.
Well,
You expected it to be kind of silly and campy.
Because it was kind of like Fez's dream, and kind of his fantasy of what he wants reality to be. And I thought they did a really good job.
And then Grey's Anatomy had one. I'm not a Grey's Anatomy fan. Like, I'm just not. And I don't think anybody will ever change my mind. Like, I don't care who's on it. I don't care what it's. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so sorry. Every other medical show on the planet, I probably watch. Like, I watch New Amsterdam. I watch The Resident. I watch.
There was another.
I watched Chicago Hope. I watched in ER. I watched every single episode of both of those shows.
Well, there was the other medical one that had a musical that I did not put on the list, but it was the one that had Adam Arkin in it.
Wasn't that Scrubs?
No. It wasn't a comedy. It was an actual medical.
I don't know. I remember. Adam Arkin. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah,
but,
I'll have to look that up.
And then Ally McBeal had a musical, which I thought was.
And the episode's called The Musical. Almost.
That one was pretty good. I mean, some of them are kind of. They're extra. And they're campy and they're silly and they're not very organic. But it's time to kind of. I think the whole point is to laugh at yourself at that point, like because they are a little over the top.
Chicago Hope. It was
Chicago Hope.
Yeah, Chicago Hope had a musical episode.
I don't remember it. I'll have to go back and see if I can't find that episode because I can't really remember it. But Oz, the HBO show, had a musical episode. Which
it's kind of crazy. It was a graphic and violent episode, but they still had
stumped the crap out of me. Like I'm like that show, and I was still kind of young when that show came out, so I didn't watch it. Plus, we didn't have HBO, and I will harp on that for the rest of my life because when I was growing up, I didn't have HBO until I was 25 years old. But the show was really dark, and so it kind of floored me to think that they had a musical.
Yeah, and it's so funny because in that show, for all you Eminem fans, the voice of Yellow is in that show. He's also J.J. Jameson in the Spider-Man movies. Little trivia.
Well, there you go. He can remember trivial details and he can be good at trivia, but I can't remember the names of anybody. I don't know what my problem is. And then I guess How I Met Your Mother had one. It was called Girls versus Suits. I never saw that.
That was actually a good one.
I wasn't really a fan of How I Met Your Mother, so.
I mean, even though you love Neil Patrick.
I love Neil Patrick Harris.
Neil Patrick Harris is just fantastic, and him portraying
Barney.
His portrayal in Lemony Snicket's series of unfortunate events. He's doing a fantastic job in that.
I have to check that one out too. But he was the character in Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog, so I don't see how you could not see him in the capacity of a musical, but
well, he was one of the longest running cast members in Rent.
He was. But I didn't know that at the time because, I just didn't know that at the time. Like, there's so many things that I was like, oh, that makes sense now.
It's funny. It wasn't until like later on that I found out he was gay, and I was actually kind of like saddened about it. But at the same time, it's like now looking back at his career, it's like, of course, But
like there are actors who play who only play, gay male actors that only play gay characters.
Yeah.
And so when you see someone who's played a myriad of roles that have not ever really been gay characters. I mean, like his name is Barney in How I Met Your Mother, right?
Yeah.
Barney.
Yeah.
And so I mean, that's got to be a testament to acting ability when you can act like that. Like I mean, it's so different than what I guess our quintessential stereotype is of.
But I mean, he's played the womanizer, weird, bizarre characters before. But it just, I didn't put two and two together before him being gay until like
the other side of that is Matt Bomer. So I watched Matt Bomer in White Collar. I watched him in Doom Patrol. I've seen him in the Magic Mike movies, and you're just like, what?
He was in Texas Chainsaw
And
Massacre.
because he doesn't ever.
Yeah.
Because he has never played a gay man, I guess. Like, I honestly, maybe that's why. Because he's never played that. Like, most gay actors, I think they end up playing gay roles.
I like how they are taking that, and bursting the bubble of, gay people are not, your typical, showboat kind of flamboyant.
And because I think like we see it as a stereotype, we don't realize that there's a million people out there that live this real life, live it in real life, and it's not a role they play, it's a life they lead. And so it's just interesting to be like, oh, he's gay. Well, darn. And you're like,
the guy who played Niles in Frasier, like, I had no idea. And then, but like, I know it's like, when you watch other stuff that they do, and it's like, and it's just like, it's displayed out there for you.
Like Neil Patrick and Harold and Kumar.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, I love him in that movie.
But even when he was as Barney in How I Met Your Mother, it was so different than what I'd seen him play in things before, and probably because it was a much more like crass like character, was more edgy, and because he was Dookie for the longest time. Like,
and that's the thing, everybody's gonna remember him for that and Harold and Kumar. I mean, I don't think How I Met Your Mother will.
No, he is.
I loved him as Jenkins in Starship Troopers.
Oh yes, Starship Troopers.
I think when you look at pieces of work and you're like, oh, well, he's kind of like a gamut of interesting characters that you didn't think were ever going to be like him.
And he was also in, oh, wow.
I think he's done some
again. He's done vocals. He's done voice acting. He's done a lot of stuff in his career, and the fact that he's done musicals, he went from doing Rent for so long to doing Cabaret. Like, I would love to see his musical work more.
Yeah.
There's I don't know if it's available in Canada. I know it's here in the United States. There's actually a streaming app called I think it's called Broadway HD. And it's Broadway shows that you can watch from home.
I need to check that out too. Because I really did. I loved Rent. I really did. I don't know why. I don't know what I don't know. It's just, I loved Rent.
I think I might have a better appreciation for it if I were to see it live on stage. I wasn't a huge fan of the movie.
The actual like movie I liked, But the TV one, I was less enthused about, and I don't know why.
Wasn't Joey Fatone in Rent? Maybe on the actual Broadway.
I think it was on Broadway. I'm not 100% sure.
I know
I think
Joey
it might have been on Broadway, but he's been in a lot of Broadway shows that I probably don't even have a clue of. But then the last one is there's Community. I didn't ever get into Community, but it's the regional holiday music is what it's called. And I didn't watch Community. I also didn't watch The Office. I don't know. Parks and Rec. I didn't watch that either. I feel terrible because Chris Pratt was in Parks and Rec, and I love Chris Pratt, but
I had no idea that the X-Files did a musical episode.
Yep, they did a musical X-Files, musical episode too, which is strange. But I guess,
like, I swear I watched every single episode of X-Files, but apparently I missed that one in particular.
It was like wasn't it like an alternate, who took my phone?
Oliver.
An alternate reality. Wasn't that what it was?
I think so.
I vaguely remember it. I vaguely remember Mulder singing. I don't know why.
I can't see if this is available in Canada, but it's BroadwayHD.com. And it's on streaming devices. You can get it on Roku, Amazon, smart TVs.
So the last one is my other favorite show on TV that is coming to an end this year. It's not even finished filming. Thank you, COVID. We get to hang around for just a little bit longer. It's Supernatural. And it was the episode called Fan Fiction. It was the 200th episode. And so based on the books, like the books that Chuck wrote about Sam and Dean Winchester. So they wrote a couple of kids and I don't know, high school or college kids wrote a fan fiction musical of Sam and Dean. And they were sent to the school to a ghost, I think.
Yeah.
It's a little foggy on some of this stuff, but like the singing and the dancing was wonderful and hilarious.
They sang Carry On, Wayward Son. And
it was the title track was Carry On, Our Wayward Son. And of the show, like the beginning and the ending was a reprise, and the show did surprisingly didn't have either one of the guys sing that much. Like
no, they didn't sing.
Jared and Jensen were, Sam and Dean were, catching the monster. But
it was the school musical that. But
it was funny that it was the whole like singing the songs that were in the show, and like that talking about the bromance between Castiel and Dean, just some of the little nuances of the show. So it was like a lot of fan service, which was kind of nice. I think I need to watch that episode again, but it was funny. And it took place in it took place supposedly in my hometown, but it was not filmed there because it's filmed in Vancouver, but it took place in Flint, Michigan. So like the beginning of the show where it tells you where they are, it was Flint, Michigan. It wasn't Flint, Michigan.
It was Vancouver.
It was always funny. Like I watched like CSI and stuff like that when they'd be like Las Vegas, and I'm like, that's not in Las Vegas. That's in California. Like I'd been in the places. They'd be like, that's not Las Vegas.
I hate when they do that, when they try to take like bits and pieces. They did that for movies that they filmed here in Winnipeg, where it's like, oh, this is like this part of the U.S. I'm just like, you could totally tell that's Winnipeg. Nice try, people.
That's California.
Like when you live, especially when you live in the city that they're supposed to be taking place in, and they're like, yeah, if you drive down this road, you can get there. Like, no, you can't.
That would happen in CSI Las Vegas all the time. Be like, those two streets don't cross. Like, they're not even on the same part of town. Like you're talking the whole city of Las Vegas is between those two cities or those two streets. And then the footage, like they'd have like stock footage, you know, that you knew was stock footage because it showed up in the show multiple times.
So like
but then they'd build everything else on a soundstage. So like if they were on Fremont Street wasn't the real Fremont Street. It was some other street all lit up to look like Fremont Street. And then whatever like signs and stuff they'd have to show up as
or like when they're walking out
footage.
or when they're walking out of a building and then like that's what they see when they walk out of the building. Like, no, that's
not what's outside that building.
Yeah.
No.
But that's Hollywood for you.
Well, Goon was filmed here in Winnipeg, and
that's the one with Sean William Scott.
Yeah, and like one of the convenience stores was an old 7-Eleven that they they used for the film, and then there's like little street areas that you can, you know, anybody from Winnipeg can point out where it is. But I just love how it's like, oh, this is supposed to represent like Halifax or something. I'm just like, oh my god, Halifax doesn't even look like that.
When it's the same as places where you've been, but they're shooting like they'll shoot parts of things there.
Yeah.
Like we'd been in, like Brian's like, that's not Nevada. And I'm like, so where is it? And he's like, oh, that's that place in California. And I'm like, oh, we've been there. I'm like, oh, that does look familiar after. Oh yeah, okay. But other places, like you can tell when something's filmed in Georgia. You can always tell. Or when they're trying to make it look like Georgia, but it was filmed somewhere else. And then I can usually tell when it's Canadian. Like if it's a show that's filmed in Canada, like I'm like, oh, because that kind of looks like Montreal, and that kind of looks like Toronto, and
like
that
the way
kind of looks like Vancouver. You know, like oh,
you look at the streets and stuff, and you can just tell.
It's like that's not an American city at all. Like, you know, because you've been to enough American cities, it doesn't look like that.
Yeah.
My favorite thing is when they say they're filming in any place I've been. This is Florida, and I'm like, yeah, that part was Florida. So like the Glades. The show The Glades, that there are parts that are filmed in Florida. Like they filmed it in Florida, but there's stock footage of places in Florida that I know they didn't film at. You can tell the difference between the stock footage and them actually filming there. Because I'm like,
I was obsessed with that show for like the first season. Second season, I'm just like, eh. And then it just died, and like I was actually kind of mad at.
I was really mad that it didn't even get.
Well, it made 4 seasons, but it left us.
Well, he died in his. Well, he could have died in his kitchen. Who knows if he died? And he was shot in his stupid kitchen. Stupid shows. That's why I hate it when I hate saying that I like a show. Like superstition or not, they always cancel the stuff I like. But then something can be on for.
I know. That's happened to me several times where it's like I really like a show and it gets canceled within like the first maybe 2 seasons or and then shows that I really don't like end up
I could have lived
being
without
around for 10 years.
Grey's Anatomy, like okay, like I said, I'm not a Grey's Anatomy fan. I didn't get it. I don't get it. I won't get it. I never will. But it's still on freaking TV.
What's the other one that lasted a while? Private Practice? Is that one still on?
That was a spin-off of Grey's Anatomy.
Which one?
Like, get a life. Private Practice. Was it?
No.
I don't know. Well, I had one of the girls in it. I don't know.
Yeah, it was. I think it was a spin-off.
And then Housewives. The one with Terry Hatcher in it.
Desperate Housewives.
That freaking show lasted forever. And I'm like, it's a primetime soap opera.
My mom was enthralled with that show, and I would watch it once in a while just to appease her because, well, it became our thing. And I followed the guy from Firefly, Nathan Fillion's career for a while there, and him being on that show, I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And of course, my mom's like, "I love him. He's so hot. He's so hot." I'm like, "Mom, he's, he's Canadian. He shouldn't be on this show."
It's, what cracks me up though, because when we talk about, oh well, he's too whatever, like, so like we saw 5 feet of burst. Is it 5 feet apart?
Yeah,
5 feet apart. So, and it has Dylan Sprouse, right?
Cole.
Is it Cole Sprouse?
Cole Sprouse.
Okay, Cole Sprouse in it. And I'm like, I can't think this kid is adorable because I've literally watched him grow up. Like, I have watched him grow up. He was on TV, on shows I was watching as a teenager, as a baby, essentially. I can't think I can't think he's adorable. But like, it's kind of the same thing with music too. I'm like, oh, well, I kind of missed it the first time around. I mean, I was a New Kids on the Block fan, but I was 10 years younger than the youngest member of, New Kids on the Block. Like, okay, not 10 years younger, but essentially he was like 5 years older than me still. So it still would have been weird. Like, I'm 9 and he was like 14,
Yeah.
It's kind of still weird. So like now it's not really a big thing to be like, oh, well, he's 45. Okay, well, yeah, I'm nearly 40, so no big deal. But like, I can't. Well, it's like the Jonas Brothers, like their new music is on, and I'm like, I love their new music, and I'm like, wait a minute. And for me, I'm still like, I'm 14 years older than Nick.
Well, his
Nick
wife
Jonas.
is our age. So.
Well, that's his wife, whatever. But I feel like I'm robbing the cradle because I watched him grow up. Like
he's 27.
Ooh, he's 26. Well, 27.
Because she's 37.
I'm 12. I'm 14 years older than him. Like, that's just weird. But see, Kevin, I'm not. I'm only 8 years older than Kevin. So okay, that's passable. I forget that I age. Like, I hold on to the 90s and the 2000s so much that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not that old anymore.
Yeah.
Damn, I'm old.
I think this has been a fun, interesting episode to talk about. But before we end it, let's talk about some things that have happened with our show.
Oh,
here.
our show. We've got some cool things that we didn't announce last week.
Yeah, last week, which
we got involved, I guess.
Last week was such a great show to talk.
We had a lot of information to give, but a lot of people that were our guests were just too interesting to take away from them.
Yes. So we are now officially an audio podcast. We can be found on Spotify, Apple, Google, Spreaker, and any podcast format that you can think of.
I'm so sorry they have to listen to my obnoxious voice.
And we are also part of the Hangin with Web Show YouTube channel. So I know we're live every Saturday at 2, but our videos will be uploaded every Wednesday at 3 o'clock on YouTube, and that's Eastern time.
And then you can watch our beautiful faces, and we make all these stupid faces that I make. And you can watch me yell at children from over top of the computer. What do you have? No.
We also have a merchandise store now.
Yes. See, I'm
excited for the merch.
Like, he does all the merch, and so we have a tip jar too, and so all of that money goes back into the show. So it goes back into the show to be able to bring better audio and better visual,
representation for the show.
Because we've been streaming using one platform, and we've looked at other platforms to stream in a more of what we need kind of venue. And so, that'll go directly into right back into the show. Yeah. And we've added some talent too. Like, I think that that are working behind the scenes. I know we don't get to be joined by Willow every week because, you know, we're slaves to actually working jobs that pay the rent.
I work at a beautiful coffee shop that I'm sure everybody knows.
Hey, maybe they can sponsor us someday. Huh?
Maybe. But yeah, no, it's I do try to get weekends off, but working retail, unfortunately, I can't always. It's basically the roll of the dice right now. It's I'm actually going to be transferring to a new store. Well, not a new store, but a store closer to home. Still with Starbucks, but just I'll be walking distance as opposed to taking the bus. So hopefully
frees up some of your day.
Hopefully with having an open availability, I'll be able to be a little bit more on the show more frequently.
Yeah, so like Paul Wolf in Ohio, he is gonna be taking some of the bookings, and Terry McIver from Ireland.
Jerry's been watching our show and following us, I think, from the very start, which I know is only 12 episodes, but to listen to us for 12 episodes, I think is, I mean, that's definitely something to be said. And I
mean, we're trying to come up with interesting topics and stuff.
Well, Paul Wolf in Ohio, he has a huge love of the wrestling industry, and while you know, we love TV and movies too, but I think that, you know, he really can add to the wrestling side of it, and it's nice to have other people's ideas about the show as well. So we have a lot of people that are working on booking and bringing in amazing talent that can share ideas about the things that they love too. And it was just interesting. Like last week's show, we featured Shane Rangi and Michael Felcher. I was going to say it wrong. And so they were talking about being behind the scenes on movies and being in costumes on movies. And, you know, like Shane is a creature actor. Like he is under makeup most of the time and does a lot of stunts and things like that don't get the same recognition as somebody who you see their face every second of the movie. And so
he's been on some good, he was on Lord of the Rings. He was in the Narnia films.
He has been in the things that are part of our, you know, pop culture essentially. And Michael Felcher is the guy that does a lot of behind the scenes, like the extras on the films that talk about, you know, the making of, and so, you know, it's all that behind the scenes that give us that like connection with the stuff that's happening on the set that kind of, I think, makes us fall in love with film even more. So bringing these guys on and have them be part of, you know, our Reels and Heels of family is a kind of a big deal for us. But for us to be able to join the Hangin with Web family too, like, I mean, we already kind of were part of the family, but I mean, we've known them for as long as we've been in Florida. I've been on their show multiple times, and I think, like, you know, we all kind of travel in the same circles, but actually to be under their channel and have that viewership, it's a pretty stellar.
Yeah, they consider it's the HWWS TV channel on YouTube, which we're all producers producing different content. So they're just a platform to help us get our stuff out there. So, I mean, there's a lot of different creators that are involved in that channel. We're just proud to be one of them.
I think the awesome part about, like, I think this time is it's a place where we get to create and talk about the things that we love and create topics surrounded by what we want to talk about. But at the same time, we've been given the gift of time that we don't generally have.
Yeah.
And so, yes, we are coming to you at 2:00 on a Saturday, which is how we can manage to do it throughout the school year too, because even my second job, I won't work at 2:00. But I can choose, like, the beauty of having a second job is that I can basically choose when I can work, and I can make my availability for Saturday, and I have Sunday off. And so, you know, like I'm working that Monday through Friday, but I'm working, you know, an additional hours for the sheer fact that no teacher can live on teacher salary alone.
Yeah.
But, you know, just little things like that to bring in people that are, that have different views and that share such, you know, a love for the
whatever it is.
For whatever it is. Like, I think it's pretty much said best is that, you know, we won't yuck on anybody's yum. So it's like, if you love it, you talk about it. And the more you talk about it, maybe people will gain an appreciation for it too. Like it's funny because you go through the list of musicals and you're just amazed at how many you may or may not have seen. You're just like, oh, I didn't know that was a musical.
Yeah, and that's the thing about like just film in general, or even like if you're a fan of wrestling, you go back and you look at things and you're like, whoa, you know, that was a great match. You know, oh, I might have missed that match. I want to go back and watch that match. And the same thing with movies. You're like looking at the years and you're like, well, I don't remember if I've seen that one, but now I know. Maybe I should go back and watch it.
But then think about a lot of the movies that came out in the 80s that we were not old enough or shouldn't have ever seen at the time they came out.
Nightmare on Elm Street? Oh,
I mean,
sorry.
No. I don't think I should have ever been introduced to Freddy or Pennywise or anybody as early as I was. But at the same time, it's like I have a much different appreciation for them now as an adult than I did back then, because they essentially terrified me. But I mean, I said this on last week's show too. It's like when you saw Thriller for the first time, I was 3. Like, holy crap! Like, you know, and I mean, I think like,
well, you might have been 4. I think it came out later in the year.
I might have been 4, but holy cow! You know, like it's still pretty scary when you're watching it as a 4-year-old. It's still pretty scary now, even like if you really think about it, because the makeup effects were amazing. Yeah. But
then you have people like Michael that are there on set filming this to release
as an extra or an added added featurette to, you know, whatever you're watching
or whatever.
And it's just like that's kind of like the tie to the beauty of this unsung part of movies that we don't always see. Like I happen to have gone to high school with a makeup effects guy in LA right now, and he's worked on Teen Wolf, he's worked on The Wretched, and so
and isn't that like The Wretched is the number one movie in Hollywood
right now. So I mean, like, it's interesting to see that other side, because you're like, this was what somebody loved, this is what they were so excited about doing, and they're finally making it happen. And so you kind of cheer those people on. You're like, oh, that's really awesome. You know, like he gets to live his dream. It's what he worked essentially his entire life for. And he was one of those kids who loved horror movies and science fiction, and now he's making it happen. And I mean, that's incredible. I think that anybody who follows their dreams is, you know, I think we should talk more about them. You know, I think that we need to share that love, and we have to share it from a perspective of an average, you know, Joe on the street. Like what I love, you might not love, but there might be a commonality on something. I mean, I think that's how we build trust, and that's how we build an appreciation for what other people think. Like, there's a lot of things I don't agree with.
Right.
But I'm not antagonistic. Like, you can share it and I'd be like, oh, that's a good point. Like, because you just never think about it. It wasn't part of what part of your repertoire. Like, it always makes me laugh when people talk about, you know, the 80s and the 90s, because I'm like, I was young in the 80s, but a lot of what I remember revolves around the 80s.
I have a clear memory about the 80s, and it's funny, like, just I remember watching my mom, you know, get ready for work, and, you know, the makeup would be like way past her eyebrows, or the glitter, the big hair, it was just, and wrestling, for some reason, I think the reason why wrestling was huge in my household was because it had like a theatrical feel to it. Yeah, there was bad acting, and then there was a lot of fighting, but it was just, a show. And sadly, a lot of the wrestlers that I grew up loving are dead, but I still had the ability to meet a couple of the wrestlers that visited Winnipeg for various things. Being able to serve Bret Hart his coffee at Starbucks when he came to my store, just like he came for Comic-Con. One of my friends brought him in for the show. And I remember, asking him, how was Bret Hart? How was Comic-Con and all that? And he points to Bret Hart, like standing at the side of the bar as I'm making drinks. I'm just like, whoa.
It's funny because like when you meet them, what you take away is what you share with the rest of the world. So like I understand that there's people that have had all kinds of, interactions with Bret Hart. I didn't have a good one. And it kind of makes me sad because he's an incredibly smart man. I've listened to him on podcasts. I don't dislike him. I mean, there are some things I wish they'd stop hounding on. Like, I'm tired of the Montreal screw job, and I'm tired of he's tired of hearing some of these things. But, and I understand that he's probably tired of them too. But I've listened to him talk about the business, and I've listened to him share some of the things that he had a take on. And it was just interesting to hear other people talk about the business. It's interesting to hear them talk about certain people, and you just get excited about it all over again. You're like, I really love this. He
really
whatever,
like talks about, as long as he's been in the business, he never hurt anybody in the ring. And he's proud of that.
Yeah.
And there's so many things he could be proud of, but that being one of the things that he's the most proud of. It's like, okay, so I had a bad interaction with him, but I also don't know what happened. I'm like, I don't know what happened in Saginaw, Michigan that day. Aside from when we sat in line for 4 hours to get this book signed, I don't know what happened before that. I don't know who rushed him. I don't know what anybody said. I don't know what happened for him to be irritated by that point.
Maybe somebody brought up Owen or something. Who knows?
And you know what? Like, we have to remember that we're all human too. And we all have things that trigger us and things that are part of our lives that we wish weren't. And they will forever, reside in our heads. And when we talk about wrestling, we watched the Vice,
Dark Side of the Ring.
I'm not doing a good job with the O's and the ums today. But the Dark Side of Wrestling,
and that's actually a Canadian produced show,
documentaries. And watching the one about Chris Benoit, and when they talked about Eddie Guerrero, I lost it. Like, when we lost Eddie Guerrero, we lost like a pillar of the cruiserweights. Like, we lost that shining star. Never got the recognition he should have gotten. And I think the part that, for whatever reason, the part that sticks in my head is when his daughter says, if he never became a wrestler, I would still have my dad. And those things resonate with me because I lost my dad at a work accident. It's kind of like, I get what she's saying, but I also feel that he did this for his family, and he did this so that he could provide, and he did this, and he should be acknowledged for it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, he gave a lot to the world in the short amount of time. He should be remembered the way he should be remembered for it. And I mean, so that's kind of sad. I mean, like, you know, we watched something the other day, like Brian turned on a clip of the Macho Man, and I was like, oh man, you know, you just think about how much he lives.
And it wasn't the business that killed him either.
It wasn't, he had a heart attack in the car.
Yeah, he was like, he lived in Sarasota, and he was behind the wheel, and he had a heart attack.
With his wife in the car.
They crashed into a tree.
The heart attack killed him though.
Yeah.
It's just, you think about how terrible that is, and you hear about it all the time. Like the business finally does catch up with them, like the sheer agony they put their bodies through, and being able to get up every morning and do what they're doing. Like I'm sure they're not the only ones. I'm sure that, you know, other people that are in lines of work where they're putting their bodies on the lines pretty much every day. Feel the same way.
I think this is a topic that we'll discuss in July, because we have our next, 2 weekends covered. Next weekend, we're going to be joined by co-creator and motion cap actor of the Mortal Kombat franchise, Daniel Pacina.
I'm so excited for that.
He played in the first 2 games. He was Johnny Cage, and then all the ninja characters, so Reptile, Scorpion, Sub-Zero. And we're also, since we have him on, we'll be discussing martial arts and films and his take, since he is a grandmaster martial artist. I believe he's a high rank. I don't even know what the rank black belt he is, but he's very high up there.
Well, and here's an episode where I won't say much. I'll just be listening. Be like, okay.
But I mean, you don't have to be a fan of Mortal Kombat to appreciate what it has done for not only the video game world, but in pop culture.
Well, yeah, like it's huge in pop culture, and I'm not saying that I dislike it. I'm just saying that I don't know much about it. Like I've seen the movies, I've seen them, but that doesn't mean that I know anything about martial arts.
Yeah. But it'll be nice to find out how Mortal Kombat came to be from one of the people that was there.
Yeah.
And then that's next weekend, and then the weekend after that is. On the 20th, it's comic book and graphic novel adaptations. So I have a couple roundtable people with us. We'll have Kevin Boyd from Fan Expo, who's the comic coordinator, huge comic fan as well. And I believe Roland Mann, who is a comic book writer, will be on our roundtable.
Oh.
So we'll be talking about the different comic adaptations over the years, and what we like or dislike about them, and what's important to make them work.
You can always tell right around this time, because that's when the kids start getting loud. That's when the dog starts getting loud. That's when everything starts to be like, hey, we need attention now. But it's kind of nice to be able to watch and hear what other people have to say about the work that they do, and it's just fun. I mean, like I've learned a lot. It's like I'm just gonna sit here and listen to these people, because
she'll have a notebook and she'll be taking notes.
I'm like writing stuff down because I'm like, oh, this is a good idea. This is something I want to know more about. Like I have a Post-it note from when we were talking about the weather. On the weather one, but I have all the horror movies that they were talking about on the Post-it note. I have Post-it note about the musicals that we were just talking about. Like I have tons of Post-it notes just about stuff that I'm like, I should look that up. I probably will never have time to look it all up now. But it's just interesting. But I do want to put a little plug out there. If you're a fan of Netflix Lucifer, in about 45 minutes, there's an announcement about something that they're saying it's an announcement about something that hasn't been announced. But we do know that they have announced the intention for a season 6. And Tom Ellis has signed on for the finally, not in the final, because who knows if it's the final. Like, they're just saying it's because the final season was supposed to be the 5th season, which is currently not been released, but was supposed to be released in May and then was supposed to be released in June. And so 6 at 6 o'clock. So come in here in about 45 minutes. There'll be an announcement about that. So if you're a fan, look for that announcement. I know he's signed on, and most of the cast is signed on for an interest in season 6. So if Netflix picks it up and rolls with it, then we'll have another season 6 of Lucifer. There's been a few comments and wondering about Supernatural. Supernatural has not finished filming their 15th season. So what you see as far as what's been what's been released so far is not the final season, but in the rest of the season hasn't even been really completed yet.
Yeah.
I've been hearing that the last episode might be a movie.
There's been there's been some rumors of there being a mini series. So I'm hoping that, I'm hoping that we get the end that it deserves. Like,
yeah.
There's so many things that have been cut short with COVID that, we hope don't get caught in the crossfires of everything. But there's been a lot of really cool things that have come out of it too. There's really amazing people going on, Instagram and Facebook and Zoom and all these places, and they're surprising fans and they're being visible. And I think that that's amazing. And I'm so grateful for that. But I also hope that shows like Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist don't get lost in the shuffle. I'm hoping that, Supernatural gets the ending that they have wanted. But, it was only supposed to be 3 seasons, turned into 5, turned into 15. So, I mean, that is one, show that for 15 seasons.
Fans just keep making it go. And,
it's like the engine, the little engine that could,
Well, and at the 3rd season, Eric Kripke left, and that was just supposed to be it. But they managed to carry it on for, 12 more years. And we've watched the characters grow up. We've gotten very accustomed to life in general, with them in it, that, they've entered the halls of pop culture. So I think that, we got to show a little love, and hopefully we won't get forgotten by the loss of some of these TV shows. But I wanted to plug that for a second too.
But it's been really nice talking to you today again, Willow. And
I want to thank you guys again for bringing me on the show. And, I've been trying to do my own podcast. And so every now and then I'll bring out an episode, but it's like few and far between. And I definitely wanted to work with people who have the same interests as me. So I appreciate you guys bringing me on the show.
All right.
You're welcome. Brian does so much, like he just basically says at 2:00, sit here. And I can usually hold up a pretty decent conversation about stuff because I know stuff, but there's so much about it that Brian puts more work into it than I ever really thought. But that is his full-time job. Like, this show is his full-time job.
Yeah.
And I'm out doing, my own full-time job. But he's pretty much put me in a lot of situations where I had to be more extroverted than I'm used to, which this is okay because I'm only really talking to one other person.
I think we need the end thing. I haven't thought of one yet. A sign off.
Oh, we need a sign off. I've been saying that since we started 12 episodes ago. We need a sign off. So, if you're watching this video, put in the comments what our sign off could be. the comments. There they are. But we need a sign off. Something that says, hey, we're signing off.
Yeah.
Someday there's going to be a blooper reel. I'm so afraid.
A blooper reel. This would be fun.
Can we turn it off now?
Yeah.
All
right,
right.
guys.
Have a good day.
Have fun. Bye bye.
Oh.